Hey guys, Serendi here. Here is what if Cranel was Tanjiro's reincarnation. Hit like and subscribe, and also don't forget to check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 1. Belle saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kids playing in the snow. Their hair was dark, very much the opposite of his white. They wore some weird clothes that Belle did not recognize but felt like he had heard the description before. He saw the oldest kid, a boy barely entering teenage wearing a green and black checkered garb, helping the youngest one shape a snowball. Belle remembered where he had heard the description of the clothes. It was the same clothing style that his grandpa described to him when he was telling him about the story of a hero from the Far East. Somehow he was dreaming about the Far East even though he had never stepped foot there. He continued seeing the children played around with a forlorn smile. Having siblings must be nice, was the thing that passed through his mind. After all, he was a single child, living together with his dear grandpa and no one else. No father, no mother, no sister, no brother. But it was not like he was unsatisfied with his life. He was content living with his grandfather and helped him on the farm every day. But seeing the siblings here, Belle felt like his heart yearned for something he could not have. Cranel opened his eyes. The sight of the ceiling of his bedroom greeted him, and then he realized that what he saw was just a dream. Hey, Grandpa! Belle shook the still sleeping body of his grandfather. Grandpa! NGGH, what is it, Belle? Can you tell me another story of heroes from the Far East? I don't know much, but I still remember several heroes from the Far East. And so, his grandfather's tales filled his mind with more clear imagery of the Far East. He used his imagination, the mind of 8 years old, to reconstruct his grandfather's stories in his mind. He then remembered the vivid dream he had. For some strange reason, Belle could never forget the dream about seeing 5 Far East children played in the snow. Over the years, Belle kept having similar dreams. It was not all the same, but there was a similar theme about his dream. It all centered around the oldest of the 5 kids he saw on his first dream. All those dreams centered on the green and black garbed boy who barely entered his teens. He did not see him only playing. Belle also saw how, as the eldest, the boy bore much bigger responsibilities by helping his parents with the household. On another day, he also saw how a younger version of the boy protected his sibling from a boiled kettle, receiving a burnt mark on his forehead. Belle did not understand why he kept having these dreams, but he enjoyed it nevertheless. Hey, Grandpa! Do you know any stories about a hero clad in a green and black checkered outfit? Belle one day asked his grandfather about the boy he saw in his dream. I don't think so. If it exists, this is the first time I heard about him. No one I've heard or read had green and black outfit as the main description. A little disappointed by the answer, Belle replied with a quiet "I see," and went back to continue on the farm. For sure, he thought the boy was some kind of hero, and he was witnessing the journey of the hero. But apparently Grandpa, who had heard almost all of the hero's heroic tales, never heard of him. Ever since then, Belle had never seen the dream again. Was it because he felt disappointed by his discovery that the boy was not a hero? Belle did not know. He just wanted to see those dreams again, to feel the joy the boy felt when his parents told him he would have a new sibling, to feel the worry the boy felt whenever his siblings were careless, to feel the elation whenever he got to hold his latest sibling, to feel the exhaustion whenever he got to help his parents. Yet those prayers went unanswered for years. Years later, Belle's grandfather died, and the loneliness was too much for him. He decided to become an adventurer in Ororio. He wanted to become like the heroes in his grandpa's tales, and he felt being an adventurer was the first step. The little line his grandfather said to him about picking up girls in the dungeon was there, but he kept trying to stuff it to the back of his mind. The first night Belle slept inside the abandoned church after getting goddess Hestia's blessing, he again dreamed of the boy. This time, he saw the boy selling charcoal in a small town, quite a little far from the mountain the boy's family was living. He saw how a nice old man told him to stay the night in his house for fear of man-eating demons. He felt the disbelief the boy had at the old man's statement. In the end, the boy still rested in the old man's house for the night because he did not want to disappoint the old man. And then he saw how the boy's entire family was dead the next morning. Belle woke up with a startled shout. That dream was the same dream he had when he was little. Did he begin dreaming of it again? But how come the tone of the dream was so different than before? Whereas before his dream encompassed the warmth of the family, this time, it was mired in tragedy. Bel, are you okay? Hestia, his new goddess, asked him. It seemed that his shout woke her up. With sleepy eyes, she was looking at him with concern. Ah, nothing, goddess. It was just a dream. Bel tried to explain it without making her worry more about him. It was just a simple dream, after all. I see. Then, to make sure you do not have a bad dream again, I'll sleep with you. Hestia jumped towards the worn sofa he used to and embraced him. Goddess. But said goddess did not reply. Bel thought it was more that she would not respond, because he could still feel her heartbeat, and it hadn't slowed down in the slightest, meaning she was faking her sleep. That put a smile on Bel's lips. Family. Slowly, Hestia filled the loneliness he felt after his grandfather left him, and so Bel fell asleep again. This time he dreamt something else. He had a pleasant dream. Over the week, Bel kept having that dream. One day he saw the continuation of the nightmare he had before. Bel saw the boys surprised, but instead of wallowing in pity, he took the initiative to bring his sister to help. Then surprisingly, his sister awakened and attacked him. Both fell down a cliff. Another day he got the answer to why the boy's sister attacked him. According to a new guy in the dream, his sister had been turned into a man-eating demon. However, instead of fearing his sister, the boy determinedly tried to protect her. Was this how it felt to have an older sibling? In another dream, he saw how the boy trained himself to hunt those responsible for turning her sister into a demon. Not in vengeance, but to turn her sister back into a human. That honestly made him very happy. He had heard several tales of heroes whose motivation was revenge from his grandpa, and none ended up in a happy ending. He hoped the boy's story would end up happy for him. In yet another dream, he saw how the boy cut a big boulder into 2 pieces with the help of his senior spirits. He saw how the boy's teacher reluctantly let him go into a selection exam to enter the demon-slaying corps. He then saw how the boy did in the exam, where he killed the demon who had eaten his seniors. And yet, once again, instead of a thought of avenging them, he sympathized with the demon. Bel saw how he prayed for the demon to be reincarnated as something else instead of a man-eating demon. The boy in the green and black checkered garb was indeed something else. Maybe his thought back when he was little was wrong. Perhaps even though his grandpa had never heard of him, the Far East boy was a hero of his own story. Seeing the boy's compassion was genuinely inspiring. Bel woke up. For the past 2 weeks, Bel followed the routine he had set up every morning before going to the dungeon. That was right. Today would mark 2 weeks since he became a proper adventurer of Ororio under the Hestia Familia banner. He said banner, but Hestia Familia still did not have any banner since they were a new familia. Even the member was only him, not counting Goddess Hestia as the familia's patron deity, of course. Not long after, Goddess Hestia woke up, and both prepared themselves for another day in Ororio. Bel went to the dungeon, where monsters spawned daily, and it was the job of adventurers to kill them for the magic stones those monsters possessed. Those magic stones could then be exchanged for money. That was how adventurers of Ororio operated. To be honest, he was still new towards adventuring. In fact, he had only descended to the 4th floor at the most. The journey towards being a hero was still long. A small part of his heart thought that saving girls and meeting them there would require him to be strong first. Bel had no problem on the first 3 floors. With monsters such as kobolds and goblins, he slashed at them all with his trusty knife. The knife was not anything special. In fact, it was part of basic newbie adventurers pack initiative from the guild to help them integrate with the life of killing monsters. The guild gave them armors and weapons, and in turn, they took parts of the adventurer's profit to pay it back. Bel chose a knife because it was the thing he was most familiar with. He used a knife back on the farm with his grandpa. Not wanting to get over his head, Bel decided that knife was the better choice for him. He was currently on the 4th floor and was cutting the remains of a goblin he had just finished for the magic stones. When he finished, his eyes laid on towards the entrance to the 5th floor. His trusty advisor from the guild, Miss Ina, would not want him to enter the 5th floor before he was ready. But Bel thought he was ready. He had killed many kobolds and goblins after all, so without further thought, Bel descended towards the 5th floor. It was not even 5 minutes later that Bel decided that his decision-making skills were terrible, and he should not have entered the 5th floor. Why? Because he was currently being chased by a Minotaur on the 5th floor. How come a Minotaur is on the 5th floor? Miss Ina clearly said that it was a monster that originated from the middle floor. Monsters roaming the floor it wasn't supposed to be was not a common sight in the dungeon. With all his might, Bell ran. He ran away from the Minotaur, but it was relentlessly chasing him into a dead end. Bell felt like his heart stopped beating when he saw the dead end. Turning back, he saw the massive figure of the Minotaur approaching him. He thought this was the end for him. His mind went back towards the people he cared for. His deceased grandpa, goddess Hestia, and his advisor Miss Ina. But then, a stray thought passed his mind. Breathe. His lungs sucked up a tremendous amount of air. Breathe. That was the basic being trained by the boy in his dream. Breathing. With a specific breathing technique, you can strengthen your body and unleash a powerful attack meant to kill demons. Inside his mind, Bell recalled everything he remembered about the dream he had last night. About how the green and black checkered garb boy breathed in a certain way and generated enough power to kill the hand demon. It was not something logical. Really, Bell did not even know why he tried. But Bell began imitating how the boy in his dream breathed. And then, clicked. For some strange reason he couldn't explain, that way of breathing felt comfortable to do. Recalling the stance the boy held, Bell imitated it and moved. With the knife in his right hand, Bell ran towards the Minotaur and leaped. Positioning both his arms crisscrossed, Bell swung both at the Minotaur's neck to maximize the attack's momentum. Echoing the boy in his dream, Bell shouted inside his mind, "Breath of water first style, water surface slice." It had been a perfect imitation. Indeed, the clarity of Bell's dream ensured that Bell could recall the form correctly. But it was an imitation. Therefore, he did not account for the difference in the weapon. That boy had a long Far Eastern sword, while Bell only held a short knife. Thus, Bell's fate was sealed. He swung too early and missed the timing of the attack. Overcoming fate was only told in heroic tales. This was real life. This was the end for him. But before the Minotaur swung its hoof to end Bell's life, suddenly a fountain of blood spurted from its chest as something slashed its torso in two and instantly killed it. The spurted blood rained on Bell's entire form, drenching him in sticky red, awful-smelled liquid. The Minotaur's form fell towards the ground in two pieces, and the figure behind the attack on the Minotaur revealed itself to Bell. The figure was a beautiful blonde girl that captivated him. With a thud, Bell fell to the ground and saw clearly the armored girl's golden eyes gazed towards him. There was no mistaking it. His savior was Ace Wallenstein, the sword princess of Loki Familia. Bell had heard of her, who wouldn't have heard of the record holder for the fastest level up in history. But he would never think that the figure revered by the mass was this captivating. "Are you okay?" No. His heart was beating faster than it should. His eyes could not tear themselves away from her perfect figure. His body could not move as if it was frozen in time. In summary, he fell in love at first sight. After that, Bell ungracefully ran away and went towards the guild, for Miss Ina. He wanted to know everything about the sword princess. Ace Wallenstein, his new idol. The sight of blood-dripping Bell shocked Ina too much that he got scolded by the half-elf beauty. That night, when Bell had his status updated by Hestia, he acquired a new skill: elemental respiration. Hestia did not understand what and how it manifested with him, but Bell understood. It said upon his status sheet that elemental respiration manifested the element of his breath. He understood what it meant. In his dream last night, he saw no water, but Bell felt like water would be appropriate to be manifested there for some strange reason. It was breath of water, after all. He was very excited to try his new skill, but he glanced towards his trusty knife. It was not a fitting weapon for his new skill. "Goddess, is it all right if I want to change weapon?" Hestia blinked. "Is there something wrong with the knife?" "Granted, being almost dead can change your perspective, but to suddenly change weapon. I understand. Bell, you can change your weapon. Leave the expense of our daily necessity to me." Proudly pointing to herself, Hestia assured Bell that he could if he wanted to. His goddess was very understanding, Bell thought with a smile. It was indeed the thing that held him back from just doing it. After all, part of his earnings in the dungeon also went towards their daily expenses. If he suddenly changed weapon, the guild would charge more each time Bell exchanged the magic stones because he took another loan from the guild. He did not want to waste too much money, so he planned to get the standard Far East sword from the guild instead of buying it himself. "Thank you, goddess. Anyway, Bell, what kind of weapon are you going to try now?" Hestia inquired in curiosity. "I'm trying a Far Eastern sword." "What was it called again?" "A katana. Takemikazuchi always told me that a katana is stronger than a normal blade. but I never put much stock on it since he is biased. What's with coming from the Far East and all. But if you're interested, maybe I can ask a favor from Takamikazuchi for one of his familia members to teach you. Bell shook his head. No need, goddess. I'll just train myself on the first floor or outside the dungeon. No need to put yourself in debt. With the resolve of changing his weapon, Bell fell asleep and welcomed himself to another dream. The next day, Bell found himself in the Pantheon to consult with Aina about changing weapons. The request itself was not something strange to Aina, as many adventurers who felt their choice of weapon was wrong were the same as him. But Aina was curious why Bell thought it was necessary, so Bell told her the truth. Yesterday, when facing the Minotaur, I had no dream I can win against it. But my weapon felt too short of reaching it. That's why I want to change my weapon. I want to try a katana. Does the guild have it, Miss Aina? He omitted the fact that he felt his knife was too short because he imitated a swordsman's style. I see. We do have a standard katana. Then does that mean you are going to have another loan from the guild? Then, Bell nodded at that. A short while later, Bell had gotten his new katana. As for his knife, Aina told him to keep it as a backup weapon, and Bell agreed. On his way to the dungeon, somebody called him. Excuse me. Bell stopped his stride and turned. It was a cute girl. Wearing a white apron over a green dress, the gray-haired girl was eye-catching. She raised her arm and showed her hand. You dropped this. It was a small magic stone. Bell immediately checked his back pocket. Ah, thank you. He took it with a smile. Are you heading towards the dungeon? The girl asked him cutely. Bell could only nod, seeing her cute act. Then, Bell's stomach roared, which made him blush in embarrassment and got a small laugh from her. Please wait here for a bit. Bell saw her enter a restaurant and came back out with a box in her hand. This is my lunch. You can have it. I don't think I should take it, Bell decided with a scratch to his head. It's yours, Mississippi. I wouldn't want to deprive you of lunch for my own sake. I insist. The girl. Clearly, a waitress at the restaurant grabbed his arm and put the boxed lunch on his hand. I don't like seeing people hungry, Mr. Adventurer. Please accept it for my own sake. Seeing such a heartfelt confession from the gray-haired girl, Bell could not refuse. However, before he could reply, the smile she had on her face turned a little mischievous as she continued. Mr. Adventurer, I'm giving you this lunch I had for today. That's why. She leaned closer towards Bell, far closer than he was comfortable. But Bell still could not tear his eyes away from her face. Tonight you have to eat dinner at the restaurant I work at. Okay? Well then, see you tonight. Sir Flova, a waitress at the Hostess of Fertility. Then I'm Bell. Bell Cranel. Bell introduced himself. I'll be waiting, Bell. The girl left with an extra spring in her step. Today his objective was not to get more magic stones. No, today his aim in the dungeon was training himself to use his new blade, the Far Eastern sword called katana. Its name was a little foreign in his tongue, but he was sure this was similar to the sword he saw in his dream. A goblin greeted him with its cry. Bell clumsily took the sword out of its sheath and slashed at the incoming monster. Bell heard it, but it was not enough to kill the little monster. No, Bell thought to himself. He understood his skill. It wouldn't activate itself if his attack was random. So he breathed and found his body moving in a familiar motion he saw in his dream. Water surface slice. Crisscrossing his arms, he then put all his powers into the swing of his arms. Flowing water appeared from the blade as it cut the goblin's neck cleanly. The water fell to the ground in a splash before being absorbed by the soil. That sight put a smile on Bell's face, as he could not contain his joy. Yes, he shouted while catching his breath. Huh? So using the breathing stance attack tired him more than usual, huh? The rest of the day, Bell did not use the breath of water again for fear of tiring himself. However, he did familiarize himself with using a bladed weapon with a more extended reach than usual. He did not dare venture down to the third or fourth floor, limiting himself to the first 2 floors. He felt satisfied with his progress and wanted to go back for today. He did not remember how long he had been inside the dungeon. Only one thing stood between him and the exit. A group of 3 kobolds who growled at him. Since this was the last exchange he had with the monsters in the dungeon today, Bell felt it was appropriate to use his breathing style again. But this time, facing 3 opponents at once, the first style was unsuited for the situation. He recalled another style that the boy did to strike at more than one opponent at a time. Breath of water, 4th style. Striking tide, Bell ran and slashed the first kobold, water drenching it. Then, he used the slash's momentum, with the weight of the water materializing on his sword to spin himself, and slashed at the second one before he turned again and cut the third one vertically from the bottom to the top. It was akin to the flow of a harsh tide dragging someone into the water. Water splashed the ground, the aftereffect of his skill, elemental respiration. The 3 kobolds' corpse laid motionless on the ground. Bell used his knife to gouge the magic stones out of them and put it in his back pocket. Overall, it was a productive day for him, even though the last move was very tiring. "Hey Bell, did you activate your skill today? Will you tell me about it?" Hestia asked him as she was updating his Falna. "Sure," Bell replied to his goddess as he laid on his stomach. "When I swung my swords in a certain way, water will appear, although I don't understand what is the benefit of the water. It is nice to have when you are thirsty inside the dungeon, or when your clothes are tainted with blood. Water appearing out of nowhere, huh? That said, it's not magic, I think, because your magic status is still at 0. Oh yeah, whenever I use the skill, it actually tires me a lot, so I used it only when I need to. I have to train my stamina and endurance as well." "Good," Hestia replied towards him. "Keep working hard, Bell. I'm sure you're getting stronger." She then stood up from his back and handed him his updated status sheet. When Bell read it, he glanced at his goddess in confusion. "Goddess, are you sure this is correct?" Bell Cranel level 1 strength, I-82, H-121 endurance, I-13, I-38 dexterity, I-96, H-120 agility, H-172, G-212 magic, I-0 magic, skill, elemental respiration. Materialize elements when striking an enemy under certain conditions. His status jumped higher than yesterday, even though all he was facing today was kobolds and goblins. "I know it is correct. I'm the one copying the status to that sheet. After all." Why was she suddenly angry at him? "Goddess." She put on an overcoat and walked past him. "Forget it. I have something to do for my part-time job." She slammed the door and left him alone. Did I do something wrong? He questioned himself. He remembered his promise with the waitress seer. He searched for a restaurant named the Hostess of Fertility and entered it. Immediately, he was greeted by the sight of 2 cat people serving customers. He looked around and saw Seer Bell. "Good evening, Seer. I'm here. Welcome to our Hostess of Fertility." She greeted him properly as she motioned him to follow her. Not knowing what to do, Bell followed him towards the bar counter. "Please have a seat here, Bell." "Ooh, so you're the one Seer said she is waiting for. A new adventurer? Because I've never seen your face before." A female dwarf greeted him from behind the counter. "Name's Mia Grand. I'm the owner of this place. I heard you're going all out tonight, so just give us a call." Nobody said anything about going all out. Bell looked towards Seer, who was looking at anything but him with an innocent smile. Ah, so that was her ploy. He grumbled under his breath about his own naivety. Scanning the menu, Bell found something he wanted to try. "Just a single pasta, please. Oh, and a glass of water too." "Not ale?" Mia asked him, and Bell shook his head. So she left with his order without adding anything. 15 minutes later, the pasta was placed in front of him, and he tasted it. It was great. Bell ate the meal with a smile. Indeed, it was worth the price, he thought. When he was halfway finished, Seer took a seat beside him. "So how do you like this place? Are you enjoying yourself?" After gulping down the pasta, Bell replied, "I'm a little overwhelmed, actually. I've never been inside a place like this before. But I like it. It's nice, I think." "Thank you, Bell." Suddenly, a commotion could be heard from the entrance. A group of multiracial people entered, and it was loud enough to gain Bell's attention. It was the Loki Familia, one of the 2 strongest familia in the city. And with the realization of who was entering, Bell began looking for a certain someone. His eyes landed on the silent blonde-haired girl. Yup, Ace was there. Bell felt his cheek darkened in red. "Bell?" Seer called out to him, but he ignored her. His mind was preoccupied with something, and that something was the Sword Princess. She truly was mesmerizing. "Ah, Loki Familia, huh? They're regulars here." Seer gave an explanation. Bell registered Seer's words, but honestly, his mind was just so full of thought about Ace Wallenstein that he did not pay attention to anything else. "Ah, she's so cool." "Bell?" Seer pinched his arm in irritation. Only then Bell got his thought in order and looked at Seer while rubbing his arm in pain. Girls don't like it when you paid attention to other girls, you know? You. Isn't that about dating? At least his grandpa said so. Seer gasped. Belle, you're so forward. That was not my intention, though, he retorted. She just winked playfully. At that, Belle realized that Seer was just teasing him. He grumbled under her breath. And then he heard someone raising their voice. Ace, tell us about that one story. And Belle's good day turned upside down following that one statement. He shamefully ran away from the scene in tears, ignoring Seer, who called out to him in worry. He did not know where he was even going. All that he knew was that he should get away at all costs. He ended up inside the dungeon, hacking and slashing the monsters, too overcome with emotion to think properly about what he was doing. When he went home that night, Hestia was there to scold him, listen to him, and finally welcomed him back. Once more, Belle felt that they were becoming proper familia family. Belle saw another dream. This time it was about the first mission that the boy had to undertake as his journey to return her sister into a human again began. He saw the boy, with his keen sense of smell, detected the demon, and fought them. He shouted in worry when the boy in the green and black checkered garb was being overwhelmed by multiple demons at the same time. He almost let out his tears when the boy's demonized sister came out of the box and helped him fight the demon until they defeated it. Some bonds did transcend humanity, and this was one of them. When the Hestia familia grew larger in the future, would he have this kind of bond with the other members? The next morning, Belle updated his Falna because last night he was too tired to care. His status jumped drastically again. That was 2 times in a row now. Even Hestia admitted that she did not understand why. Well, Belle thought he shouldn't question it if it benefited him. And his goddess seemed to think so Belle was just glad it happened. He also made a promise to not leave his goddess alone, and in turn, Hestia also made a promise to support him. Before going to the dungeon, Belle went towards the Hostess of Fertility's direction, intending to apologize for last night. Unfortunately, as he found out when he arrived and was greeted by an elf and a cat person, the restaurant hadn't opened for the day yet. Though, when he inquired for Seer and the owner, they were kind enough to call her and left the 2 of them for their privacy. Belle? Seer began running when she looked at the one waiting for her. A big smile was present on her face as she approached him. Mia Grand was walking with an annoyed expression behind her, probably because he ran away without paying for his meal last night. But it was why he was trying to apologize now. Seer. Sorry for last night. Belle bowed towards the 2 women. Here is the pay for last night. I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. No, I'm the one who's sorry for running away. Especially to you, Miss Grand. No Miss Grand for me. Just call me Mamma Mia like everyone else, was her terse reply. Seer suddenly looked like she had just remembered something as she excitedly told Belle to wait and ran inside. That girl chased you, you know? But she went back with a dejected face because she couldn't find you. Ah. Hearing that made Belle felt a little guilty. Please tell her I'm sorry for worrying her. If I said it to her directly, it would go just like before. I'll be sure to do it. After that, Seer came back with another boxed lunch for him, which he reluctantly accepted again. He planned to eat there too today anyway, because this morning Hestia told him that she wouldn't be home for the night and maybe several days because there was a party of gods she would attend. Oi boy! Mia called out to him as he was about to head to the dungeon. Yes. Survive. That's the most important thing about being an adventurer. If you survive, you win. Belle was reminded by a particular scene he remembered seeing in his dream. Specifically, it was the boys' exam to enter Demon Slayer's organization. The goal was not to kill as many demons as possible but to survive for 1 week. The dungeon was the same. If you weren't careful, both could be overwhelming, and it could lead to an early death. Thank you, Mamma Mia, Belle replied with a bright smile. I will never forget it. You'd better not, Mia replied with a laugh. Belle left the Hostess of Fertility with a jovial mood. The guilt he had towards Seer and the Hostess of Fertility lifted from his mind. Inside the dungeon, Belle tore through the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floor effortlessly with his breathing technique's help. Although he still had to be conservative with it because it was still tiring him. Now on the 4th floor, Belle was facing 3 dungeon lizards and 5 goblins. 8 monsters. This was a first for him. Calming himself, Belle took a breath. Breath of water. 3rd style. Dance of the swift current. Belle swung his blade and moved. Each step was accompanied by a swing of the sword to decapitate the goblins and lizards. If one were to look at him properly, it was as if he was dancing instead of killing the monsters. Moving to one side, then swung the blade and twist, moving to the other side. Water appeared in a beautiful arc, carving through the air before gravity took hold, and it fell to the ground at the end of Bel's dance. Not even a minute later, Bel killed the 8 monsters, although not without cost. The third style he saw in his dreams were short, but having to kill 8 monsters made the dance longer than he had seen in the dream. Thus, he was out of breath. It wasn't that his body was tired, no. His muscles did not felt tired at all. He was gasping for breath because from what he understood from his dreams, the technique to breathe in a certain way that pumped energy to your body required your blood to be circulated quickly, and blood circulations needed air. He used the technique and powered himself up by taking so much air. Then he stopped the breathing technique, and suddenly his lungs tried to normalize again, leading to gasps for air he was experiencing now. After sufficient rest, Bel collected all the magic stones from the corpses laid on the ground. After that, Bel tore through the 5th floor, now that there were no irregular monsters like the Minotaur there. He did not even need to use the technique because he killed them so quickly there had been no many versus one situation. Then, he took a step on the 6th floor for the first time. His guard all raised up, Bel moved slowly. From the walls, new monsters were born, ready to kill adventurers. But he was ready. A war shadow appeared, and Bel took a ready stance. It leaped towards him, but he was faster and slashed the humanoid monster in 2. That was too easy. From what Miss Ina said, the 5th to the 7th floor is way harder for a solo newbie adventurer that they are advised to form a party for safety. Bel said to himself as more monsters appeared. This time, it looked like the dungeon registered him as an emerging threat instead of the annoying bugs that he was before because suddenly 3 war shadows and 2 frog shooters surrounded him. He jinxed himself, Bel thought inside his mind as he breathed. He swung his swords at the oncoming war shadow and cut its hand. Then he sensed something coming on his back, so he jumped and took a stance in the air. Second style, water wheel. Bel did a somersault and slashed the thing behind him. It was the tongue of a frog shooter who hissed in pain. As a water wheel appeared, Bel wasted no time to strike at it and the other frog shooter using the 4th style, striking tide. Then he turned and decapitated the one-armed war shadow using the 1st style, water surface slice, and when he was still in the air, he somersaulted again for another water wheel to cleave the other war shadow, leaving only 1 war shadow standing before him. If he stopped his breathing technique here, he would be too tired to face it properly. So with all the power left, Bel thrust his katana towards the 3rd war shadow's head and moved it down vertically. No monsters left in sight, Bel was still alert. Ina had hammered into his mind that the dungeon was alive. So he looked around trying to spot something wrong. Luckily for him, there was nothing. He gasped for breath as he released his breathing technique. After 2 minutes of catching his breath, Bel collected all the magic stones and decided that he had enough for the day. Going home, Bel saw many people bringing something inside a closed box out of the dungeon. He didn't know what it was, as it was not his problem, but he heard something about monsterphilia. He would ask Miss Ina later. Bel had another dream. The boy in the green and black checkered garb was taking a rest somewhere in a city this time. Suddenly he smelled a demon that killed his entire family. He followed the scent only to see that the demon was masquerading as a human. Then disaster came as he turned a bystander into a demon to get away in the ruckus. Fortunately, the boy was helped by a good demon who opposed the one who turned his sister into a demon. Bel then saw how their sanctuary was invaded by 2 demons under orders from the progenitor of all demons. The boy used everything to defeat the 2 demons, even the consecutive breath of water stance he had never used before. It was similar to how he had used more than 1 breath of water style in succession. Bel suddenly felt glad that even the boy inside his dream was struggling to do it. Bel woke up alone. For the past several days, his goddess Hestia hadn't come home. He wasn't worried as she said that it might be possible that she would be gone for several days, but he had to admit that he felt lonely without her. It was like those days after his grandpa left him alone in this world. The loneliness inside his heart ate him away. But, Bel thought to himself, he had to be strong. He had to believe that Hestia would come back to him. He had to have faith in her. He had to trust her, because that was what it meant to be a family. After eating a cold breakfast, Bel prepared himself for a foray into the dungeon once more for the day. On his way to the dungeon, though, he passed by the Hostess of Fertility and got called by the cat person who worked there. "Hey, white hair. Wait up." Bel looked around to see someone else with white hair but found none. That meant the girl was talking to him, right? Me? He pointed to himself. Yes, you, Naya. When she was right in front of him, she handed out something. It looked like a purse for a girl, Bel thought. No way it would be his. So why did this girl offered it to him? Please give this to Seer, Naya. Bell did not understand what she was trying to say. He only tilted his head in confusion. The waitress in front of him, though, suddenly clutched her heart and gasped. Hey, are you okay? He heard the cat person mumbling something under her breath. Something about not fair and too cute? But the cat person suddenly slapped herself in the cheek and focused again. Never mind that, Naya. Just give it to Seer. You're her friend, right? Suddenly someone came behind her. It was the elf that he saw yesterday. Anya, if you say it like that, I'm sure that Mr. Cranel won't understand. Bell nodded at the elf's statement. Yes, I don't understand, Miss Anya. Rio? Don't embarrass me like that, Naya. Mr. Cranel, please excuse us, but Anya and the rest of the staff at the Hostess of Fertility would like to ask for your help in giving Seer her purse. She took a day off for the opening of Monsterphilia and forgot her purse. I know we're asking much, but it's okay, it's okay. Bell replied with a smile. You're working hard. If you need help, I'm not inconsiderate enough to decline. Too bright, Naya. Seer bowed towards him. Thank you so much, Mr. Cranel. No need to bow, Miss Elf. Rio Lion. The elf, introducing herself as Rio Lion, nodded in thanks. Speaking of, what is Monsterphilia? I'm new in Rio, so this is my first time experiencing one. Bell scratched his cheek with a sheepish grin. What followed was a detailed explanation about it from Anya. Anyway, thank you, white hair. See you later. Anya said after finishing her explanation and left him and Ryu alone. That girl. Ryu shook her head and bowed once again towards Bell. We're very grateful, Mr. Cranel. Miss Lion? Yes. This was just a feeling. There had been no basis on why he felt this way. He had no keen sense of smell like the boy in his dream. However, all his senses were telling him one thing. This elf in front of him. This greenish blonde-haired elf who showed no shred of emotion in her face. She was in sorrow. Are you sad? The elf looked taken aback before she masked her surprise with a calm demeanor. I'm sorry. I had no right to ask you a personal question like that. Please forgive me. I'll see you later. Bell ran away. He had no courage to face her properly and apologize and could only do it as he ran without seeing her response. He couldn't believe that he ran away from that restaurant twice now, but he had no regret asking that question, even if it ended up unsettling such a nice woman like Miss Lion. He truly looked up to the boy in his dream, and he wanted to emulate not just his technique, but also his compassion. But he approached his first attempt the wrong way and ended up embarrassing himself. To such a beautiful elf to boot. Embarrassing. Too embarrassing. Bell resolved himself to apologize properly later. On his way looking for Seer, Hestia was surprisingly there and took him on a date. Even if he insisted that he was tasked to find someone, Hestia took it in stride and brought him to a random stall selling foods and beverages. But in the end, Bell caved and let his goddess took him. Maybe he could meet up with Seer that way instead of blindly searching all of Rio. They even met Miss Ina, who was working for the guild today. And then the peaceful day was broken by a scream. A monster was wreaking havoc and landed its eyes on the two of them. Eyes widened in shock. Bell was still aware of the danger they were in, so he hauled his goddess and ran. He ran with all his might. It was not a monster he had encountered inside the dungeon. Therefore, logically, it was stronger than him, so he ran. Words from the owner of the Hostess of Fertility echoed inside his mind. Survive. This was not the dungeon, but the lesson stayed the same. He needed to survive, and to do so, he had to run. Bell took everything on his sight, looking for a path that would not disturb everyone else. If he simply ran without any thought, no doubt more of the bystanders would be affected, and he did not want that. So he looked for a path with the least amount of possible casualty. However, the monster, a silverback, managed to catch up with him and threw a punch. He had no way of knowing which of the two of them was its target, so he threw his goddess gently to the left while he took a single step to the right. His intuition was right. The monster changed the direction of the punch to target Hestia. Without any second thought, Bell bolted and dragged his goddess away from the silverback. Goddess, why is it after you? I don't know, she replied after she was being carried by him properly again. Still being chased by the monster, Bell ran away and found himself in front of Deadless Street. Asking for forgiveness towards the street resident inside his mind, Bell ran inside the maze-like structure. Even if people said that you couldn't leave Deadless Street, It was the most ideal place for Belle to lose the monster. However, he forgot one thing. As Belle slipped into the alleys and came out somewhere the silverback couldn't reach, the ape-like monster overcame it by using his physical ability to jump and took shortcuts. Belle cursed inside his mind as he did not consider that fact. Now he had to confuse the silverback by changing directions on an irregular basis, forcing it to not jump blindly. Though Belle himself was a newbie adventurer who should not face a silverback alone in the first place, so while he could keep himself up for a while, trying to confuse the silverback was a tiring effort. In the end, he failed to lose the silverback, and it managed to surprise him by landing on the place he was about to turn to. The monster roared and it sent a chill to Belle. His body was frozen in fear as Hestia also screamed in fear. While she was a goddess, coming down to Gakai meant that she sealed all her power and lived like an average human. So, of course, she would experience fear. Take control of yourself, Belle shouted inside his mind, and it shook him out of the fear. Enough time for him to throw his goddess, albeit roughly, away from the giant hand coming towards them. Then, Belle took a breath and swung his sword. It met a resistance more incredible than anything he had experienced. The sword broke into pieces, leaving him gripping only the handle and a small part of the blade still attached. The rest was flying in the air after being broken. A little shaken by his trusty weapon being broken, Belle thrust it into the silverback's arm and drew his backup dagger. The result was the same. The monster kept ignoring his attempt to hurt it and focused everything on getting his goddess. It swatted him aside, his body hitting the wall. It hurt a lot, but he had to endure. For the sake of his dream. For the sake of his goddess. For the sake of his own self. He could not crumble here. He had to endure. His hand found a magic stone lamp that fell from the wall. Turning it up to maximum, he threw it towards the silverback and closed his eyes for a second. Then, not wasting any time, he dragged Hestia away again. Safe, although only for a while. With no weapon on his back, Belle had no choice. He had to sacrifice himself for his goddess. He could not and would not forgive himself if he lost someone dear to him ever again. Not after his grandpa's passing. Hey Belle, what's with that look? Hestia asked him with a frightened tone as he looked everywhere for a way to keep her safe. Belle, I'm sorry, goddess, but I'll be a decoy. Please look for help in the meantime. I'll buy you enough time. No! Hestia's grip on his body became even tighter than before. Don't leave me, Belle. You made a promise. That stopped Belle on his track. Indeed, he made a promise to never leave her. That moment became a weakness for them as the monster was gaining upon them. Belle, behind you! A single stray thought passed his mind. He only used the breathing technique when he was attacking his enemy. But, the breathing technique itself was not part of the styles of the breath of water. It was a fundamental part of it, but in the sense of everything needs the breath as a foundation. The breath was not a part of the styles. It was the opposite. The styles were martial arts moves founded based on the breath. So, he breathed and then he ran. Continually trying to maintain his breathing technique while running really took a strain. But he couldn't stop now. If he stopped, his body would catch up, and he wouldn't be able to do anything after that. So he had to keep his breathing technique steady as he ran from the monster chasing them. Belle? What is that weird sound? Huh? He never realized that the way he was breathing when using his breathing technique sounded weird. But trying to talk and run and maintain his breathing was hard. He opted to not reply to his goddess' inquiry. Never mind. Speaking of, Belle, if you had a better weapon, can you kill it? Hestia looked towards him without any hint of humor. She was serious. He did not know the answer. Coupled with the fact that he could not speak, it painted a bad picture for Hestia's mind as she concluded that no, Belle thought he could not. I believe in you, Belle. That's why. Still running from the silverback, Hestia opened the case which was covered in cloth that she was bringing along with her all day. Take it, Belle. It's my gift to you. I promised to help you become stronger, didn't I? Since you keep your promise of not leaving me alone, I shall also keep my promise and help you get stronger. Now, Belle, slay that monster. Let the world know that this is the beginning of Cranel. Belle stopped running. He put his goddess down and took the thing inside the case. It was a mesmerizing black katana. When Belle took it for a grip test and took the blade out of its sheath, for some reason, it glowed a little, letting him know about the letters carved on the side of the katana. This is perfect. The grip, the length, the sensation. Everything was perfect. Okay, to better increase your chance to win, let me update your status. Chased by time, Hestia wasted no more seconds and forced Bell to open his shirt and worked on updating his fauna. What they? What's wrong, goddess? I have no paper to copy your status, but everything except endurance and magic is in E. That honestly surprised Bell a little bit, even if he had braced for a higher status than what a normal adventurers would get. A single level 1 with E in most of his status. Versus a silverback. It was still not a fair matchup. In fact, it was too tilted in the monster's favor. Still, gripping his new sword from its sheath placed on his waist, Bell took a stance. He was still maintaining his breath, so he was ready whenever Hestia finished updating his status. And then, he moved. Ace Wallenstein was running inside Deadless Street. There was a report about a silverback chasing a young adventurer inside. Following the trails of destructions and the sounds of roars, she arrived at the scene only to see the young adventurer facing the silverback. That white hair. No doubt about it, he was the boy that she saved from the Minotaur some time ago. He should not face it, but she was an adventurer, and they had unwritten rules that should not be broken. One of them was not stealing prey from others unless they really needed help. One such case was the Minotaur. She realized it was chasing someone else, so she had no reservation to steal the kill. It was part of her responsibility anyway. This time it was different. The boy was putting up a fight, running towards the silverback, with a katana on both hands, poised to strike. That was what the white-haired adventurer was doing. He did not scream in fear. He did not run. He was having an adventure. The boy leaped and did a somersault. Suddenly, water appeared out of nowhere and formed a circle as he slashed the silverback's arm. The severed arm of the silverback flew through the air as it roared in pain. Not wasting any steps, he moved for the next attack. But she and the other people watching actually gasped when the boy was not attacking aggressively. No, he moved like he was dancing, and the silverback was his dancing partner. Water appeared around them, flowing beautifully and splashing around. That dance unbalanced the silverback as it fell to the ground, and the boy used the chance to close the distance and spin for momentum before he struck like a raging tide. The only arm left of the silverback was severed. With no arm left, the threat of the silverback decreased severely, and the boy slowed down. It proved to be a mistake as the silverback used the breathing time it was given to stand up and jump, trying to use its legs to smash the boy from above. However, it looked like it was what the boy aimed to do since the start, forcing the monster to jump to the air, as she and the others could see a big smile on the boy's face. Then the boy jumped, following the silverback, arms behind his head, ready to swing his katana. At the peak of their jump, the boy swung down and hit the silverback. Gravity took hold, and both the monster and the adventurer fell down on a rush of a waterfall that came out of nowhere. When all the water fell down with a splash, it revealed the boy standing, clothes drenched in water with the silverback cleaved in two below him, slowly turning into ash as the magic stone inside it was also cleaved in two. All the other bystanders cheered and clapped as they saw the white-haired boy's first adventure, congratulating him for his victory. But nothing like that passed Ace's mind. Strong. He was too strong for a boy who ran away screaming from the Minotaur less than a week ago. That water. Magic. If she got the chance to meet with the boy, she'd like to apologize and ask him how he got stronger quickly. After that, Loki found her and both left the scene, consecutively using the second style, third style, fourth style, and then moving up to the eighth style, coupled with the fact that he maintained his technique since he was running. The accumulation of how long he used his breathing technique truly taxed his lungs. Even after all his status leaped into E before this, he still gasped for breath in the most pathetic way possible. He could not even help his goddess as she went unconscious suddenly after his victory against the silverback. She fell down to the ground hard. He worried that she got a bump on her head. He truly wanted to ask someone else to help to get his goddess somewhere she could rest adequately. And by rest properly, he did not mean the abandoned church's basement they were living in. But she was his goddess. Therefore, it was his responsibility to get her to safety. Luckily, she met Seer somewhere inside Deadless Street, and she recommended him to get Hestia to the Hostess of Fertility. Apparently, the second floor of the restaurant/bar served as an inn. After getting Hestia to a room and let her rest, Bell let out a sigh of relief. Well done, Bell. You really are heroic. Bell scratched the back of his head. Ahaha. Is that so? Truly. Then, thank you. That said, I'm sorry. If I hadn't forgotten my purse, you wouldn't get caught in today's madness. Seer bowed to him. But Bell was having none of that. It was an accident, you forgetting your purse, not the silverback. No need to apologize. I have it on good authority that it seeks goddess Hestia. So even if I didn't help to look for you, no doubt, I would still be involved. Seer nodded at his admission. Ah, Seer, is Miss Lion still here? I have something to say to her. It's urgent. Bell remembered his blunder this morning and how he still hadn't appropriately apologized. He thought this was the best time to apologize. He just hoped that Ryu was free and could talk to him. Hearing that, Seer's expression turned into a smirk. What is this, Bell? Like I said, girls don't like it when you paid attention to other girls. No, it's nothing like that. Bell frantically tried to reassure her. I just need to apologize for something I said to her before. Seer's smirk morphed into a soft smile. I see. As both of your friends, I wouldn't like it if the two of you are fighting. If she's free, I'll send her your way, Bell. See you later. She winked at him and went downstairs. Suddenly Bell heard a thump from inside the room. Fearing the worst, Bell opened the door and found Hestia slumping on the ground while moaning in pain. Goddess! Bell. Everything is aching. Don't force yourself, goddess, Bell said as he helped Hestia stood up and let her sit on the bedside. Anyway, you are very heroic, Bell. Was that your skill? Elemental respiration? Was it? Bell nodded. It looked majestic, and it's not even magic. Yeah. Bell's attention went towards his waist, where the new sword given by Hestia was sitting properly in its sheath. Goddess, you haven't really explained where do you get this sword. We have no money to pay for it, don't we? Don't worry about the money, Bell. It's taken care of. When you say it like that, I can't help but worry, goddess. I want to help you, Bell, Hestia said with a smile. You are a precious member of my familia. There is no way I won't help you. This is just a small part of it. Bell felt tears flowing down his cheek. Goddess. She moved to embrace him as he kept crying. It's okay, Bell. Let it all out. Bell was happy. Bell was really happy. It felt like he was back with his grandfather again, showered with love. So he let it all out. All the pain when he was left alone by his grandpa, all the loneliness he felt. He let it all out and cried in Hestia's embrace. A while later, Bell stopped crying, and they laughed at each other. Suddenly Bell heard the door being knocked. Opening the door, Bell found the stoic figure of the greenish-blonde elf, Rio Lion, standing behind the door. Mr. Cranel, I heard you want to talk to me? Miss Lion, I'm sorry. I had no right to ask you that kind of question. Once again, I am truly sorry. Bell bowed towards the waitress. If I may ask, Mr. Cranel, why did you ask that question? It's illogical, but all my senses are telling me that your heart is filled with sorrow, with an undercurrent of anger there, even now. So, I blurted out something I shouldn't have. I'm sorry again. Then you need to believe in your senses more, Mr. Cranel, because it is true. I accept your apology. Then Bell heard footsteps. Bell raised his head from his bow. Miss Lion. She was leaving him. One last thing, Mr. Cranel. She stopped and turned back. Bell straightened up and listened. Yes. Treasure the bond you have with your goddess. With those last words, the elf left Bell and went downstairs. Was she listening to his crying and Hestia reassuring him? Oh, goddess, he wanted to die. That was too embarrassing. Covering his red face using his palm, Bell fell down on his knees and groaned in embarrassment. Chapter 2. Bell dreamed of a mansion filled with demons. He saw the boy in the green and black checkered garb entering the mansion to save a little boy. Together with him, there was another demon slayer, a blonde-haired one in a yellow, lightning-patterned garb. Two normal kids followed in fright. And then Bell gasped when the house's structure changed. Was this the power of the demon? He saw the boy in the green and black checkered garb met a pig-headed demon slayer, who recklessly attacked everyone. He did not understand why the pig-headed demon slayer attacked the boy in the green and black checkered garb. Then the room changed again, and this time they found the lost boy inside the mansion. Bell was really relieved when they found him. He thought the boy had already lost to the demons. Then the boy in the green and black checkered garb comforted the boy and his sister who followed him before. Those two kids must be terrified, and the boy understood that, so he made comforting the two kids the highest priority. His empathy and kindness were to be envied. Indeed, Bell really wanted to follow his steps. He then saw how the boy confronted the demon alone, leaving the two kids away to get out of the reach of the demon. Although he was caught in the demon's trick, slowly, he analyzed the situation and came out with a solution. Water can form into any shape. This flow will never be stopped. And in that instant, Bell realized it. The boy's breath of water was adaptable. He unconsciously used it when he fought the silverback, but most of it was a heat-of-the-moment thing that he forgot later. But now he understood. He saw how the boy in the green and black checkered garb used the breath of water to strike as the room was spinning around and finally slashed the demon's neck. Bell then heard him praying for the demon. Such compassion. To ask forgiveness for his enemy. And then he woke up. Bell was running in the outskirt of Orario, specifically still inside the walls, but yeah, he was at the outermost Orario. The reason was that he realized that his body needed more endurance rather than honing his technique, so he was trying to increase his endurance by running the circumference of Orario. He did not use the breathing technique as that would defeat the purpose of the run, so after 2 laps of the entire Orario, his body was simply too tired to do anything, and he fell to his bottom, gasping for breath. It was at the crack of dawn, so the townspeople had not filled the streets yet, so nobody was around to look at him. Bell used the time of rest to think about his dream the previous night. Water. His style, copying the boy in his dream, was breath of water. His skill, elemental respiration, materialized the water as he used his technique. Did that mean if he knew how to use other breathing techniques, his skill would materialize the element? From the name, it was undoubtedly so. Well, not like he could replicate other breathing techniques easily. For some reason, breath of water's motion came like muscle memory to him. Bell stood up and went back to the abandoned church. When he woke up, his goddess was still sleeping, clinging to him. He hoped she hadn't woken up yet. On the way to his home, several stalls began to be opened by their owners. Bell greeted all of them with a smile. He said good morning to the flower shop owner, Mrs. Estelle, who was waving at him from inside the shop. He laughed at the joke the second-hand shop worker, Mr. Green, told him involving some clever wordplay. He rubbed the head of the bookshop owner's daughter, who launched herself at him with a smile. It had become the daily routine for him to greet these people. At first, Bell was just greeting them out of courtesy as he passed them when he returned from his run. But now he felt that they were his acquaintance. For some reason, Bell found greeting them with a smile to be fun and seeing their smile in return to be soothing. Maybe this was one of the reasons why the boy in his dream was very kind. It was soothing. His decision to follow the path of the boy in his dream was not a mistake. It came to be a surprise when he wandered slightly from his usual route to find more townspeople to greet and found somebody he knew instead. Miss Lion. Bell spoke her name, as he was quite surprised to see the waitress, not in her usual Hostess of Fertility uniform. She was wearing a simple white sleeveless shirt and short pants. On her hand, she was gripping a wooden sword, swinging it around, slashing phantom enemies. Her strike was so fast that Bell's eyes couldn't follow all of them. Hearing her name being spoken, the elf stopped her motion and looked towards the source. Mr. Cranel. Good morning, she greeted him. Gee, good morning. Bell bowed at her, flustered. He still remembered his interaction with her 3 days ago. She overheard him crying on his goddess. It was too embarrassing. What are you doing this early, Mr. Cranel? She relaxed her stance. I came back from my usual morning run. I took a different route and found you instead. Miss Lion. He scratched his cheek. But I have to ask, are you a former adventurer, Miss Lion? That movement. A 3-week-old's adventurer like me can't follow it at all. Bell noticed it. Bell noticed the fact that Ryu bowed her head when he mentioned about former adventurer. Aha! He wanted to die. He probably touched upon the same problem he did 3 days ago. I'm sorry, Miss Lion. Bell bowed to her over and over again. It's okay, Mr. Cranel. Ryu stopped his bowing. Rather, from what I heard, you took upon a silverback. A 3-week-old's adventurer killing a silverback is unheard of, Mr. Cranel. Keep surviving and your name will be known sooner or later. Name known. Bell trailed. Citywide fame, like the Sword Princess. Not exactly like the Sword Princess. She is too phenomenal, but yes. Citywide fame, Mr. Cranel. Are you perhaps not prepared? He just gave her a sheepish grin. Not really. I didn't even think I'd be famous. My familia is barely started. Is that so? Silence. Bell honestly did not know what else he could talk about to her without triggering the problem with Ryu. It felt like, in the small amount he interacted with the beautiful elf, all he did was just embarrassing himself. Oh, there was something. His mind provided. Miss Lion, is it okay if you help me train for a bit? She looked taken aback by his question. Me? She then muttered something low enough that Belle couldn't hear all of it. He did hear something about Seer and Chance. He wondered what it was about. Very well, Mr. Cranel. I shall help you train. Let's spar. Eh? Prepare yourself. The greenish-blonde elf then left his sight instantly, and Belle felt a tap on his neck. He couldn't even draw his sword from the sheath, and the tip of Ryu's wooden sword was already on his neck. Still, Belle shook the shock out quickly and said, "Once more." Ryu came back to his opposite and went back to her stance. "Forgive me. I should probably lower my speed more." "Yes, you should," Belle shouted inside his mind. Outwardly, though, his face did not change in the slightest from the pure concentration. "Here I go." Ryu moved, but this time her speed was much lower than before that Belle could follow it. He drew his katana and parried the slash that would rip open his chest were it a real sword. Despite the different materials they were made from, the wooden sword on Ryu's hand matched the steel sword made by Hephaestus herself. Belle disengaged and rolled back, distancing himself from his sparring partner. It was probably the difference in strength. His strength couldn't match up to Ryu's, so her sword was able to match his. There was no way he could get a strike at her like this. This would just end with her tapping her wooden sword on his neck again. So Belle took a deep breath. Gripping his katana with both hands, Belle let out his breath. "HM? What's that strange sound?" Ryu remarked as her eyes still trailed on him. "Breath of water, third style, dance of the swift current." He moved and twisted his way, the water accompanying his swings, and slashed at the wide-eyed Ryu. Unfortunately, she easily parried it with her wooden sword. Belle pulled his sword and changed his stance slightly. Water was adaptable. His flow could not be stopped. Therefore, if he built his attack around a single flow, he could, in theory, struck at his enemies in multiple ways within a single flow of attack by chaining his styles. Breath of water, seventh style, piercing raindrop. Belle thrust his sword, but as the rippling wave came, there was nothing it hit. The target of his attack was not there. Below you. Indeed, from below him, a crouching Ryu was swinging his sword upwards with no resistance. It struck his stomach, making him lose the breath in a second. But before the fatigue set in, Belle, whose body was floating in mid-air, twisted his body. Breath of water, sixth style, twisting whirlpool. Belle unleashed a twisting slash, and water followed, forming a small whirlpool around Belle's body and splashed outwards. However, while the water splashed and soaked Ryu, none of the slashes landed, unfortunately. After that, Belle regained his footing and slashed at Ryu, but she once again displayed why she was superior to him by dodging it and put the tip of her sword on his neck. "You're really strong, Miss Lion," Belle exclaimed amidst his gasp and looked behind him, where Ryu was still standing there. She was soaked all over. Unfortunately, because she was wearing a white shirt, the water made it transparent and exposed her undergarments. "Jaya, Miss Lion, you're..." Belle quickly sheathed his sword and using his two hands to cover his eyes. "Oh, please do not worry, Mr. Cranel. It is understandable. Still, was that water magic? Once again, I have to say, it is rare for a normal human to have magic in only 3 weeks unless you're using grimoire." Slowly, Belle took off his hands from his eyes and looked towards Ryu, who was standing there stoically. It looked like she wouldn't get angry, so Belle shook his head, answering her question. "It's a skill. It doesn't use mind at all because my magic status is still 0. Actually, it's part of the reason why I go on a morning run every day. Using the skill tires my body so much I couldn't move, so I think raising my endurance would shorten the time I need to rest my body." "That movement. Mr. Cranel, were you perhaps a talented swordsman before you gained your Falna?" Belle really wanted to say no. It wasn't his style after all. It was something he saw in a dream. However, saying no would just raise more questions. Nobody would believe him if he said he learned to use a katana in a dream. Talented is a bit much. Belle scratched the back of his head. "But I did train, yes. It wasn't a lie. He trained before going to Ororio, but not the breath of water." "I see. Shall we continue?" Belle nodded excitedly. "Please." They spent all morning crossing blades and getting bruises in Belle's case. It wouldn't be until Ryu realized that her shift was starting soon that they stopped their spar and promised to train there every day in the morning. After that, Ryu went back towards the Hostess of Fertility and was questioned by everyone why she was soaked. She answered honestly that she now helped Seer's Mr. Cranel training every morning, and Seer was invited to watch. Ryu had never seen Seer blushed that hard ever. The other waitresses were just happy that Ryu found a training partner other than them and simultaneously prayed for the white-haired boy's survival. 7th floor? Currently, Bell was standing in the guild receptionist area after trading the magic stones he got from his venture inside the dungeon. Certainly, it might be a mistake mentioning the 7th floor in front of Ina, but Bell was just so happy that he could progress one more level down in the dungeon and let it slip that he took down a monster in the 7th. Ina was glaring at him, although Bell could sense no anger, just concern. He was blessed to get Ina as an advisor. So Bell replied Ina's glare with a smile. Why are you smiling? Who is it that had almost died on the 5th floor facing a Minotaur again? But that was me facing an irregular monster that should not appear on the higher floor. I have no problem facing war shadows and frog shooters on the 6th floor, so I thought I was ready for 7th. I killed a killer ant before I hightailed myself out when I remember they can call others. My point is, Bell, it's dangerous going down the 7th floor when you only started 3 weeks ago. Bell raised his hand with a sheepish smile. But going by your own guide, Miss Ina, it's okay to venture down to 7th when your status is at G, right? Well, Ina looked at Bell sharply. Are you saying what I'm thinking? No way. I don't believe it. But it was on the status sheet Goddess copied for me. I'm not lying. Bell tried to defend himself. This time he was not at fault. How did the situation force him to defend himself again? You can confirm it to her yourself. She sighed. I really want to trust you, Bell. But I can't. I can't just trust your words. Specifically, I can't trust an adventurer's words. They have a tendency to downplay their injuries and overestimate their capabilities. Ina fixed the position of her glasses. I guess I have to visit your goddess sometime soon. She then glared at him. But that doesn't mean you're off the hook, mister. He could only laugh sheepishly as Ina reiterated her scoldings from before. Don't just laugh. This is a serious matter. Ina scolded him again. She was furious at him. That made him a little sad. Bell? Ah, nothing, Miss Ina. I'm just... He was angry at himself for making her mad like that. I'm sorry for making you angry like this. Her glare softened. If you're sorry, then you need to understand that following my advice is important, Bell. But I did follow your advice though, Miss Ina, he pointed out. We're back at this again, huh? Ina sighed and pinched her nose. Very well, I'll concede. I will confirm with your goddess myself. In the meantime, Bell, do you have free time tomorrow? Bell blinked. Well, after my morning run and training, I can take a break for delving down for a day. Why? He answered honestly. Since you're stubborn with your adventuring, I'll do what I can to prepare you for the challenge. Tomorrow we shall shop new defensive gears for you. Bell's eyes lit up in delight at her suggestion. Yes. Later that night, Hestia was in a foul mood when Bell accidentally told her about his plan tomorrow. She ended up not forcing herself to sleep together with him on the sofa. That, actually, was how Bell learned when she was upset with him in the future. In the meantime, Bell would enjoy a night of sleep without his goddess clinging to him. It was endearing at first, but now it just made it harder to fall asleep for him. It was just a happenstance. Really, she never expected that it would happen. She was just observing the crowds. There was no one worth noting there. She was about to avert her eyes when she found it moving on the corner of her eyes. Yes, it was something she found so beautiful she could not avert her gaze. A soul so transparent, so pure, she couldn't tear her eyes off it. And yet, at the same time, it radiated warmth and lit up its surroundings. The light seemed to leave a trace whenever he moved, and when the warmth and light reached other souls, they lightened up a little. That was. From there on, she vowed. Sooner or later, she would get it. Ryu slashed at the air. The chill morning air did nothing to stop her movements. She was diligently honing her skills so that they would not get rusty. This was the least she could do to honor their memories. Unfortunately for her, her fellow workers of Hostess of Fertility did not want to train with her anymore after spending a day sparring. She did not expect to meet with the one who held Seer's affection yesterday morning. She also did not expect him to ask her to train him. She complied after thinking that Seer could use this to get closer to him. Hence, today Seer and the others, namely Chloe and Lunwar, watched her fighting with her imaginary foes, waiting for Cranel to come and train together with her. I'm curious about the boy. Ryu? Chloe spoke when Ryu took a short break to wipe off her sweat. No doubt you're trashing him since he's a newbie adventurer. But what is your opinion on him? Ryu glanced at Seer for a second before she answered. Either a skilled liar or somebody told him a lie, and he believed it wholeheartedly. Sorry for the deride, Seer, but this was her honest opinion after facing him yesterday. Ryu, can you please elaborate? Seer's expression was flat. She did not like the boy she fancied being mocked, so Ryu explained her reasoning. He said to me that he's only been an adventurer for 3 weeks, but those techniques and movements. To elaborate, we sparred many times yesterday, and none of those times he could touch me with his real sword. However, his swordsmanship technique reminds me and is on par with Kagaya, with someone I knew in the past. I knew she did not perfect her technique until at least she was level 3. But Mr. Cranel moved gracefully in his own style I've never seen before while being a level 1 adventurer who started 3 weeks ago. There were no wasted movements or mistakes in his execution. And his agility and battle awareness was better than I thought. Either he's a skilled liar lying about his own abilities, or someone is feeding him wrong information about what consists of a starting adventurer because I do not sense him lying when I asked about it yesterday. He believed that he was still green in fighting when his skills said otherwise. But what if he's already a skilled swordsman before getting a Falna? That's why I said maybe someone is feeding him wrong information about what consists of a new adventurer. So, Ryu, your assessment? This time Lunwar was the one who asked her. His technique in swordsmanship far surpasses a new level 1. Everything else is in place, though except for his agility. Ryu looked towards her savior, wanting to know her reaction to Belle's assessment. However, instead of being weirded out when she pointed the possibilities, Seer's eyes were instead sparkling. So he's strong. Ryu sighed. Strong is a subjective term I wouldn't use. Miss Lion. Suddenly she heard someone calling her name from afar. It was a familiar voice. It was still morning, so the streets around them were still serene, with almost no people loitering around. That was why Belle's shout could be heard as he ran towards her. Towards them. Observe, she told her colleague as Belle arrived. Belle huffed for a few seconds before he bowed towards her. I'm sorry I'm late. Mrs. Adelines needed my help. Her daughter was sick, so she couldn't carry the sack of wheat for their bakery. She looked at him. Did he really expect her to know who this Mrs. Adeline was? Or her daughter? It's okay, Mr. Cranel. We did not agree on what time we should meet yesterday, so it's not your fault. I simply always train at the sign of dawn. Belle laughed sheepishly before his eyes caught the people watching them today. Easir, and the other waitresses too. Good morning. He bowed towards them. Good morning, Belle. Nice to properly meet you, boy. Nice to meet you. Belle smiled at them before he looked towards Ryu again. Miss Lion, thank you for yesterday. I went 1 floor lower than I was before. Ryu shook her head. The pleasure is mine. That said, Mr. Cranel, from what I can observe, you don't look like Far Eastern people. How come you're so fluent in using the Far Eastern style of swordsmanship? Did you perhaps spend some time before coming here in Far East training your swordsmanship? There was something odd about his smile before he answered. Something like that. Yes, he was no skilled liar, she realized. This boy was too honest for his own good that when he tried to lie, it showed. So that crossed out the first possibilities. She did not want to do anything about it as it did not concern her. But she glanced at Seer, who was still looking at Belle with dreamy eyes. If Belle ended up being problematic and it affected Seer, that was when she had to act. Belle unsheathed his katana, and she did the same to her trusted weapon, Alf's Lumina. Of course, she had to hold back when they sparred, and this time was no exception. Around them, the weird sound from yesterday was reverberating again. She put the sound aside and concentrated on their spar. Belle opened their first bout with a leap towards her before he slashed at her, with water splash following, as was his usual strikes. She heard some move from the spectators, but she put that aside and twisted her body to go inside Belle's guard. Unfortunately for her, Belle had anticipated this and changed his stances and parried her thrust. She overpowered him and struck his chest, but Belle hadn't relented and jumped backward to gain distance. She put her guard up because she knew Belle was not a reactionary fighter. His style was so fluid that it can also counter and not just attack, but his style's optimal use was to attack relentlessly. Her prediction was correct. Belle came at her again, water forming around his swords, and slashed at her. She dodged before she went towards his back and put her sword on his neck, signifying the end of the first bout. However, it did not go according to her vision. When she was on his back, he surprised her by doing a front flip and slashed upwards at her from the bottom. The torrent of water soaked her entire body because she could do nothing but block it with her own sword. As the water soaked her body, She flinched at how cold it was, and Belle used her momentary lapse of discipline to distance himself again. Well done, Mr. Cranel. It's the first time you managed to locate me when I'm behind you and put your swords between mine and your neck, she praised him. The last move was genuinely unexpected. Ahahaha. Thank you, Miss Lion. Belle grinned as he went on a stance. The weird sound she could not place was ringing again. Here I go. Belle ran towards her, twisting his body before he slashed. This time, she knew from experience that the twist increased the power, so she did not parry and instead slipped away. None of the water touched her now. He then moved again, swinging his sword, and she accepted the invitation. Each and every strike he tried to do, she blocked, parried, and dodged. The thing about fighting the style Belle used was to always defend because you could never know when that one decisive strike could come. Not even the water was a clue, because sometimes the decisive strike Belle did had no water. You had to wait for the slightest opportunity, but there was no gap in his execution. All his attack flowed flawlessly with no rest. That made his style of swordsmanship hard to counter. It was like, if she had to compare it, it was like fighting flowing water. No matter how many times you cut, no matter how many times you dodge, the water will always go towards you. That was why she said his swordsmanship was long past a level 1. She disengaged and jumped backward, but Belle followed her and went for another strike, which she parried in midair. You could not rest because the water will definitely come. She used the momentum from the deflection, twisting her body, and then used Belle's shoulder as a platform to go upwards in a jump. She gasped when she looked down and saw Belle coming for her even when she was still in the air. Soon, he caught up with her in midair. With a determined look, Belle put his katana behind his head and slashed downwards at her. In an instant, the momentum struck, and she was dragged down towards the ground. It was not wrong to say that she had been attacked by a waterfall because suddenly all the water in the air fell down in a rush and overwhelmed her when her feet touched the ground. But it was not enough to force her to submit. She still had her wooden sword locked in a struggle of power with his. At that moment, Ryu realized one thing. Belle's position of being above her meant that Belle's feet still hadn't touched the ground. He was still in midair, so she used her knee to strike Belle's stomach. Gah! Struck, and Belle lost his strength. She easily put her wooden sword on his neck, signaling the end of their first bout. Belle collapsed to the ground while panting hard when he realized he had already lost. Was that too strong? I apologize, Mr. Cranel. I forgot to limit my strength in the last part. Ryu apologized. No, Belle answered while panting. It's just, I exerted myself. Too hard. Pant. Ryu kneeled down to help Belle stand up. That spar is the longest one. Congratulations, Mr. Cranel. You're improving again. Thanks. Although he managed to control his breath to not gasp that hard anymore from her observation, Belle was still panting. Belle. Seer was coming towards them with concern on her face. Are you okay? Seer. I'm okay, Belle said with a smile through the occasional gasps. What was that? Seer asked, probably referring to Belle's sword style. Your attacks are somehow more beautiful than Ryu's. That was because she forsook style for efficiency. But she had to admit, if Belle kept up his sword style even when he leveled up, he would have a style that was both beautiful and efficient. She envied him a little if she were to be honest. She shook her head off those thoughts. Those kinds of things were in the past. The current her was satisfied enough after being saved by Seer. After more controlled breathing from Belle, he finally answered. That's my skill. It materializes water when I make a certain attack. What was the point of the water, though? I honestly don't know, Belle answered with a laugh. Maybe for me to have an infinite amount of water supplies down in the dungeon. That itself is an advantage, Mr. Cranel. The dungeon is unpredictable. Having an infinite amount of water supplies when finding a natural river is hard in the lower floor would really be useful, Ryu explained. Her mind went back to the old days with her familia. Belle scratched the back of his head with a grin. Ahahaha. Is that so? Thank you for the advice, Miss Lion. Not just the water, Belle, but that moves you did. It's more graceful? I don't know the most fitting words, but when I see your sword style and comparing it to Ryu's felt like it lacked something that makes it beautiful like yours. Well, this is coming from a civilian like me, though, Seer finished with a smile. Oh, you mean my breath of water style? Breath of water? Interesting name. Ryu filed that information for later. Yes, it's like water, right? Belle finished Seer's statement with a smile. Water is adaptable. Its flow cannot be stopped. When you block a water stream, it will find its way around the block and continue streaming down. Likewise, when you put water into a glass, it will follow the shape of the glass. That's the philosophy behind the breath of water. Adapt and continue flowing. I was about to say it's like a dance, Belle. Seer giggled. But you're also right. A dance. Belle's face reddened at Seer's suggestion, but then a second later, his face gained a contemplative look before he widened his eyes. You might be right, Seer. I learned the styles individually, and I knew they can be chained. But I never realized that it looked like a dance from an outsider's perspective. Thanks, Seer. Maybe if I can learn about dancing, I can improve my executions. Seer can be your dancing partner then. See Chloe. This time it was Seer's face who reddened in embarrassment from Chloe's teasing. But Belle shook his head in disagreement. It would be dangerous for Seer if she were to be my dancing partner. After all, this is still a martial art. Belle Cranel. Stop making Seer look downcast. It seemed that Belle sensed her deadly glare because he immediately followed through. But I wouldn't mind learning a normal dance with you, Seer. Good. Seer's mood lifted, and she smiled at Belle. Anyway, Miss Lion, I am ready. Let's continue. Gay. Is he a masochist or something? She heard Chloe's mutter. No, Chloe. Belle was clearly more determined in honing his skills than you. She had once invited the others working in Hostess of Fertility, but after just a single session, all of them did not want to continue. Clearly, Belle had more drive than them even though he was still a level 1. I think it's all the adrenaline, Lenoir quipped back. When he realized what he put his body through, she ignored them and focused on her sparring partner. The strange sound was reverberating again. She had to focus herself again because suddenly she realized that she was fighting. Belle was coming towards her with a swing. They stopped after one more round of sparring. Belle excused himself because he had something else to do for the day. Ryu wiped her sweat with a towel given by Seer as they walked inside the Hostess of Fertility. Belle Cranel. She thought to herself, what a frightening child. To improve so much in a single day. The path to his heart would be a treacherous journey for Seer. The friendly outings with Ina was a fun one. He refused to call it a date because Ina had never implied it to be so. They unexpectedly met with his goddess, who apparently worked off his katana's debt by working on Hephaestus' shop. To be honest, he could not accept Hestia's decision and almost started an argument. But Ina gave him an arm guard to try when it happened, so his head cooled off a bit. In the end, he decided to talk with his goddess later when the friendly outing was finished. After that, the two of them continued looking for his armor until he finally found one around his budget and looked like it had high quality. Surprisingly, Ina gifted him with an arm guard that he accepted reluctantly. Rejecting it would be impolite, but he did not want to make her spend money for him. Later, after Belle escorted Ina back to her apartment, Belle bumped into someone. Or rather, that someone bumped into him. Upon closer look, he realized that the one bumping to him was a Paolum girl. Or woman. He couldn't really distinguish her ages because of her stature. Are you okay? Belle offered his hand towards the Paolum on the ground. Yeah. Was she that startled when he tried to help? Belle held back his frown from forming on his lip. If there was one thing he noticed after coming to Orario, it was the fact that the city wasn't kind. Was she perhaps one of the people who had a first taste of the harshness of Orario? Here, let me help you stand. Belle forcefully grabbed the Paolum girl's shoulder and helped her stand up. She probably would just stare at the hand she was offered and look at him strangely if he did not do anything. There. I'm sorry for bumping into you. I know you must be in a hurry, so. Before Belle could finish, he heard hurried footsteps and a raging shout. Found ya, ya shitty Paolum. Belle did not need any time processing what was happening before he faced the one approaching them and put the Paolum girl protectively behind him. You're in my way, brat. Fuck off. The one approaching them with rage was an adventurer, evident from the large sword on his back. No, Belle said with determination. This might be a foolish move, but in an instant, he remembered the boy in his dream. Who the fuck are you? Her friend of something? The adventurer now turned his attention towards him. Belle shook his head. Don't know her. This is the first time we meet. Then why the hell are you defending her? To this, Belle looked at the adventurer in front of him in the eyes. Because bullying someone weaker than you is wrong. Bull whatever. If you insist on giving me a hard time, I'll just slice your throat. The man's hand went towards his sword, intending to draw it. Belle wasted no time to fix his breathing as his hand went towards the sword on his waist. He was not blind. The girl behind him might be in the wrong. She might be a criminal. His mind recalled the dream he had clearly. He recalled how in his dream, the boy in the green and black checkered garb was always kind to everyone, even to the enemies, after fulfilling his duty. He wanted to be like that. He wanted to be like the boy in his dream, so he stood his ground. He did not do it because he wanted to look cool helping a girl. He stood his ground because, in his eyes, the look the girl behind him had was wrong. Why did nobody ever offer her kindness? Was Ororio really that harsh? If nobody wanted to, then Bell hoped he could be the one who offered his kindness to her. It was as simple as that. The man took a step forward, his sword in his hand. But Bell was faster. In an instant, Bell went inside his guard and used the time he wasted on being surprised to hit the adventurer's chin with his katana's hilt. Bell was not delusional. Using the sharp end on the blade on him would invite all kinds of trouble. So he reversed his grip and used the hilt to give the man a bruise. Bastard! The adventurer, lost in his own rage, charged at him. However, before he could deflect the swing, a powerful voice filled the area around them. Stop it right there. It was a familiar voice to Bell. When he looked towards the sound, it was to see Ryu with a bag full of groceries in her arms. You should not fight in the middle of the city. It will disturb the civilians. Fuck off, bitch. Silence. The way she spoke it was normal, yet the weight behind her words hit them, and Bell instinctively sheathed his sword and straightened his back. The adventurer did the same. Was this really the same Ryu from this morning? Did she hold herself back that much for him? I don't like violence, you see. I tend to go overboard. The adventurer glared at her before clicking his tongue and backed off, but not before saying his last words. When we meet in the dungeon, we'll finish this, brat. When he completely left, Ryu turned towards him. Are you all right, Mr. Cranel? He nodded. Thank you, Miss Lion. I was afraid I had to fight there. Ryu shook her head. While I am happy that he backed off without a fight, I imagine you felt a little disappointed to not be able to use your skill. Huh? Forgive me for interfering. Why are you fighting in the first place, if I may know? Ah, I was just helping this one Palum girl. Huh? Bell looked behind him to see no one where the Palum was supposed to be. I guess she ran away in the tension. Bell let out a small laugh. Ryu looked towards him with a strange expression. Is she someone you know? Not really, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't help, right? He grinned at the greenish-blonde elf. It seems that you have quite the sense of justice. Hearing that, Bell looked down towards his sheathed sword. It was not justice. If he looked up, he would have seen Ryu snapping her neck quickly towards him. If it were justice, I wouldn't blindly jump into helping her. If it were justice, I would try to understand both sides of the situation before taking action. No. Bell looked towards Ryu with a bright smile. I just see someone so untouched by the kindness of the people and want to lend a hand. Is that so? So you see helping someone sincerely not as a justice, but as a kindness to be offered. I have to say this is a first, Mr. Cranel. I have a sort of personal philosophy? No, not quite that deep. Personal belief, yes. Bell scratched his cheek. Kindness begets kindness. When you offer one, you will get offered one at a later date. Ryu's flat lips unexpectedly turned into a smile. You're a good person, Mr. Cranel. Ororio has one too many good adventurers, but it lacks good people. What about you, though, Miss Lion? Aren't you also helping me? Isn't that also offering your kindness to me? See, I extended my hand for that Palum girl, and then you extend your hand for me. My belief is right. Ryu was opening her mouth, but no sound came out. You're also a good person, Miss Lion. I'm not a good person, Mr. Cranel, but I thank you for the compliment. I shall keep an eye on you. Good evening. She bowed and left. Bell wanted to argue back, but she had already left him. Was it another piece of Ryu's past that he always brought up somehow, even when he was having a normal conversation? Was he cursed to not be able to have a single normal conversation that did not end with him offending her? Feeling a little sad and worried for her, he continued his way towards the abandoned church. When Ryu arrived in the Hostess of Fertility, she put a hand on Seer's shoulder, catching her attention. Ryu then said one thing that sent Seer's thought running. Bell saved an unknown girl. Be more aggressive before someone else snatch him. Goddess, I don't agree with your decision. Bell opened the talk after they had finished dinner. This was it. This was the talk that he promised he would have with her. What decision? Hestia blinked at his statement. All right, he technically hadn't said anything to her. Everything was still inside his mind. Hiding the true worth of the katana. You said you had it handled without ever telling me that we're actually in debt. But Belle cut her off. I'm not angry because we're in debt. What I am angry and disagree with you is how you hid the truth from me, goddess. There was silence. Whatever justification Hestia was about to say, she did not say it. Belle. We're familia, aren't we? We should not hide any problems. We should share the burden and shoulder it together. Hestia moved to embrace him. My precious child is throwing a tantrum. She giggled. Gee, goddess. Belle's face reddened in embarrassment, having been embraced by her. Thank you for your concern, Belle. I'll never leave you in the dark again. Belle returned the hug before they laughed and released themselves. Belle. This time Hestia was serious. Since I promised you, I'll tell you that I have a secret I've been keeping from you. However, you have to realize that I'm not keeping this because I don't want to share it with you. I'm keeping this because humans can't lie to gods. If some gods were targeting you, you had no way to escape because you cannot lie to them. Belle adopted the serious look as he nodded, hearing Hestia's explanation. Yes. Therefore, I wouldn't tell you about it, just that it exists. Is that acceptable? Is it really that dangerous? At this, Hestia looked down. You might be hunted by other familias. And I don't want that. You're mine, Belle. Belle smiled. We will always be familia, goddess. And family never abandon each other. I understand you can keep this one secret. Thank you for sharing this with me. My Belle, G goddess. She snuggled her head into his chest. Belle put his hand on her head with a smile on his face. His goddess might not be perfect, but she was the best for him. No doubt about it. She revealed that she was holding a vital secret for his sake. He had to repay her trust. Actually, goddess, I also have a secret I haven't tell anyone. Hestia released his embrace and then looked at him with a surprise on her face. You do? Belle nodded. It concerned the fact that I decided to change my weapon. He picked up the still-sheathed sword. Ever since I was little, I occasionally have this one continuous dream. It's about a Far Eastern boy fighting to return her demonized sister back into a human. In that dream, he used a katana to execute his sword style. For some reason I can't understand, I can easily recall how to do his sword style after seeing it, he elaborated. My elemental respiration probably came from the same dream. I don't think it's dangerous, as so far, the dream helps me in many ways to realize my own goals. But if there is a likely explanation, I would like to understand it. Hestia seemed like she was muttering something under her breath. What is it, goddess? I have several theories, but I would like to ask my fellow gods and goddesses for confirmation. Hestia sighed. You truly are special, aren't you, Belle? I don't think I'm special. Maybe it was just luck. Blessed by good luck means you're more special than others. Belle. He frowned a little, thinking back to the Paolum girl he met that evening. Was he more special than her, then? He personally did not think so. He, who was improving day by day and could recall an entire sword style from a dream. The Paolum girl, who looked like she had never been touched by kindness. Were both of them any different? He did not think so. And yet, it seemed like he got a bit more luck than her. Then I hope I can share some of that luck to others, goddess. His goddess looked a little surprised by his admission. No, you absolutely have to use all the luck you get. Don't share it. You're reckless. I would hope you realize that the amount of luck you have is proportional to the chance of you coming back alive to me. Belle had no words to that. It was because he knew what Hestia said was true. He was reckless. He also relied on luck. So, in theory, what his goddess said was correct. However, Belle, I'll become strong enough that I don't need luck to survive. That way, I can share some of my luck with others, too, Belle said to her with a smile. With that, the conversation ended, and Belle decided to sleep. As usual, Hestia hugged him and slept with him on the sofa even though they had a working bed. But this time, Belle embraced her back as he slept with a smile on his face. The next day, after training all morning, Belle was going towards the dungeon when he heard someone calling for him. Mr. Whitehair, Mr. Whitehair. Blinking, Belle looked down to see a short girl with an oversized backpack on her shoulders. At a glance, she looked like the Paolum girl from yesterday evening. Oh, are you okay? The big guy from yesterday did not do anything to you, right? Lili doesn't understand. Have we met before, Mr. Whitehair? All his senses were telling him that the girl in front of him was lying. But Belle did not betray his emotion and instead just laughed it off. Ahaha, I must have mistaken you for someone else. Is there something I can help with? Are you looking for a supporter, Mr. Whitehair? Not exactly, no. Belle saw her face tightened a bit, but I was thinking about hiring them, yeah? Her face lit up. Then, please hire Lili. Bad news. That was what Belle got from his senses. Ever since Ryu told him to trust his senses more, he had always believed it. So while Belle did not know anything about this girl or why she was lying, Belle knew for a fact that she was bad news. Sure, I'm Belle. Nice to meet you, Miss Lili. This counted as lending his hand to her, right? Belle tried to justify his decision inside his mind as they walked inside the dungeon. He had promised himself that he would lend her a hand, and so he did. Would he regret it later? Probably. Would he do any different if he could turn back time? No. There was someone he wanted to chase after, and giving people his kindness was another step towards that person. That boy in the green and black checkered garb who inspired him. Why yeah, Master Belle. Lili's name is Lilaruka Arde. Oh, Miss Arde then. They had more small talks as they went towards the dungeon. Apparently, Lili was from Soma Familia. He did not precisely know how reputable they were, but they should be well known from what Lili said. Then it led to Belle offering to shelter her when Lili, for some reason, said that she was in-hopping her way in Orario. No, this was not out of kindness. It might ruin his sleep schedule a bit, but Belle wanted to keep an eye on her, to see what made his senses went crazy on her. And maybe, just maybe, when she felt the warmth given by his goddess, she would realize that there were still people that would give you kindness in this harsh world, that the world was not out to get you, that you could afford to relax for a bit. Okay, maybe he wanted to help her, but that was secondary compared to knowing why she was dangerous. Unfortunately, it looked like she declined the invitation, so Belle did not bring it up again. Then they arrived inside the dungeon. So, Master Belle, have you decided what floors are you going to do today? What's your recommendation for a 3-week-old adventurer like me? Miss Arde? 3 weeks. She looked really surprised by his admission. HM? Were you expecting someone more experienced? I'm sorry. Ahahaha. Belle scratched the back of his head. Was she reconsidering? It's okay, Master Belle. But Lili is just a lowly supporter. Lili has no right in deciding what floor you should be, she bashfully replied, hiding her face in shame. Then we'll descend to the 7th floor. I still have to familiarize myself with some of the monsters there. 7th floor? Yep, let's go. And so they descended. The monsters in the 1st to the 4th floor were easily decapitated by Belle, only occasionally using the breath of water. The look of shock on Lili's face was palpable. Like others, she probably did not think a 3-week-old adventurer like him would already have a skill. Is that a magic sword? Lili asked him as she collected the magic stones out of the monster's corpse. No. This is just your run-on-the-mill katana. Belle sheathed his sword back on his waist and replied. Then, those water are magic? It's a skill. As Lili finished carving the magic stones and left the corpse, Belle put his hands together and bowed his head down, closing his eyes. The dungeon was alive. That was what Ina said to him before. The dungeon was alive, and it hated adventurers, hence birthing monsters and killing people who entered it. Master Belle? What are you doing? Praying, Belle answered. That was fine for him. Despite seeing the unrelenting hatred of every monster he killed, Belle never hated them back. Part of it was because he wanted to emulate the compassion of the boy from his dream that inspired him, but another part of him realized that it was not the monster's fault that they were born full of hatred against humans. Praying? Lili doesn't understand. So he prayed for their peace of mind upon death. He prayed towards the dungeon that the soul of the monster he just killed would be free of hatred. It did not mean that he would befriend them. There was a line between compassion and duty, like the boy in the green and black checkered garb showed him. It was his duty as an adventurer to kill them and took their magic stones so that they wouldn't be eaten by other monsters. But his compassion required him to pray for their peace of mind. Nah, it was just something I decided to try. No need to think about it. Belle shook his head as they continued their journey. Out of curiosity, Master Belle, who did you pray to? The dungeon, of course, Belle said matter-of-factly. You're weird. Is that so? No other words were exchanged as Belle continued decapitating monsters on their way down towards the 7th floor. Each time he killed a monster using his breath of water, he would also pray for it to be free of hatred. Lili kept looking at him weirdly every time he did that, and Belle just answered her gaze with a smile. They finally arrived at the 7th floor, and Bell wordlessly used his breath of water on nearby needle rabbits. After praying for them, he heard the sound of rapid wings beat from above. Watch out! Bell scooped up Lili, who didn't see the purple moth's poisonous powder coming from above. Jaya! Bell promptly summoned water around them by using twisting whirlpool to wash away the powder. In the end, even though he questioned how useful it was to have water, he found its use now. Are you okay, Miss Arde? I'm gonna go. Without waiting for her reply, Bell ran towards the flying purple moth and made a vertical roundabout slash. Breath of water, second style. Water wheel. The water will reach towards the purple moth and unbalanced it. Bell took no time to slash its wings before he decapitated it. Are you really a 3-week-old's adventurer, Master Bell? You're joking, right? He heard Lili asked him as he was praying for the purple moth. Why? He asked after he finished praying. Nothing. You pray to the dungeon. You said that before, right? Do you feel pity for them, then, Master Bell? Lili answered him with another question before taking out a knife and began carving out the magic stone. Somewhat, Bell answered. It wasn't the monster's fault that they were born full of hate and had nothing else in their mind besides kill, kill, and kill. So as I put them to rest, I pray to the dungeon that they would get peace of mind, at least before their soul goes away. You agree with the soul theorist then, Master Bell? Soul theorist? Bell asked Lili back. This was the first time he had heard of it. Lili is not a believer itself, but from what Lili understands, the soul theorist theorized that monsters from the dungeon have a soul separate from the magic stones that make them alive. But some people do not agree with the view because the closest thing they have towards a soul is the magic stone itself. As she finished her explanation, so did she finish getting the magic stone out. Putting them in the bag, Lili then faced him. This is the first time I heard about this soul theory, so I can't answer whether I agree with them or not. But I personally think they have soul, yeah. You really are a weird adventurer, Master Bell. Ahahaha. Thank you? He honestly did not know what to feel. It was not insulting, nor was it actually praising him. But giving gratitude was never wrong, so he replied with that, although he was still confused. You're a little weird yourself, Miss Arde. She froze when Bell spoke that line. Huh? What do you mean, Master Bell? The whole calling me with Master. You don't need to do that, you know? I'm not that kind of person. Oh, killer ants. Bell wordlessly dispatched them before they could call for reinforcements, prompting Lili to work on them again. It's because Lili is aware of her own place, Master Bell. Lili is just a lowly supporter while Master Bell is a respected adventurer, she replied. If words got out that Lili is not respectful towards Master Bell, then Lili wouldn't get any more work. That put a frown on Bell's face. He finally could put together a picture of why Lili was so surprised by his help yesterday. He definitely did not like it. Rio indeed was a harsh place where the strong trampled upon the weak. It was fortunate that he somehow could acquire a skill out of his dream. Was this the luck that his goddess spoke of? He really wanted to share it with her. Hey, Miss Arde dash, whatever he wanted to say, he had to cut off because he sensed something coming from behind him. Bell immediately put a hand on his sheathed sword and took it out as he turned. Breath of water, first style, water surface slice. He cut a needle rabbit that was jumping on him from behind in two, killing it instantly. You really can't rest inside a dungeon, huh? I could rest for a while on the higher floor, but we're only on the 7th floor and we still had no meaningful rest. Only a minute's worth before something else came. Bell voiced out his observation. It's because the higher floor had more adventurers delving it. The lower you are, the smaller the adventurers' number on the floor is. That's why you have more time to rest above than here. The monsters had more people to kill, so they couldn't concentrate solely on you. I see. Bell trailed off before he put together his hand in prey. They spent the next 3 hours hunting monsters on the 7th floor before they decided to call it a day and went back to the surface. When they arrived at the surface, the sky had turned orange, around the time for the sun to set. Bell decided to rest on a nearby bench before exchanging the magic stones. Lili looked like she wanted to ask why but nodded in agreement instead. So, why do you want to rest first, Master Bell? It's because finally I can relax. Bell then stopped his breathing technique, and he immediately fell down to the bench gasping for air. And Master Bell, don't worry, gasp, side effect of my sword style. Is that so? It looked stunning and powerful. Lili guesses everything has its downside. Then, not really. I am just too weak. Belle replied, still gasping. Half an hour. We'll exchange the stones. After half an hour, Lili looked stunned at his answer. To then, Master Belle, shall we divide our earning now? Lili can't afford to wait. Lili will exchange Lili's share herself. Belle nodded. Take half. Lili gasped. Each half? Lili couldn't possibly do that. Belle smiled. Half of that stones are how much I gathered yesterday. Couldn't gather this much. Without you. It's your own contributions. Lili couldn't possibly take half of it. A quarter. That's the most Lili could take. I insist. Belle looked at her in the eyes. There was silence between them, only filled with the ambient sound of Ororio at sunset. Lili is right. You really are weird, Master Belle. Fine. If you insist that much, Lili will take a third. That's Lili's final offer. Belle smiled at that. But in exchange, Master Belle have to hire Lili as a supporter again tomorrow. That's fine. I will do that. They parted ways for the day. Lili towards the guild while Belle stayed put on the bench recovering his stamina. Later, he was grilled for information about his new supporter by Ina. In turn, he gained more information about the familia she was in, the very same familia that abandoned its own family member. To him, familia was not about weak or strong as Lili claimed. It was about understanding and accepting each other regardless of their strength. The existence of a familia that would abandon its own member was gnawing at him. Chapter 3. Belle dreamed. This time his dream brought the boy in the green and black checkered garb, entering a forest deep in the night together with the pig-headed demon slayer. Belle did not like it one bit. He felt like another tragedy would follow. He was right. After the two entered the forest, everything felt like a nightmare to Belle. A fellow demon slayer attacking the two. Then they found out about the little spiders and the string controlling the demon slayers. But it was not a solution at all. Not long after they found where the perpetrator was, the boy in the green and black checkered garb had to gasp when the controlled demon slayer asked him to kill them. No. Belle wanted to close his eyes, to avert his gaze from the situation. He did not want to see the gentle boy killing fellow humans. But Belle found that he couldn't close his eyes. He was not seeing the dream. He was feeling it. In the end, the boy rose up. He tangled the string controlling the demon slayers into trees, effectively eliminating them without killing anybody. Belle gasped in surprise and cried in relief. That sort of quick thinking under pressure was another thing that he admired about the boy. When the more straightforward option was just to kill them, he stuck to his own value that life was precious and came out of the situation with the least amount of bloodshed. But all of that effort was for naught as the perpetrator killed all the demon slayers it controlled. Belle wanted to scream at the injustice. Why did the demon do that? It wasn't fair. The boy did everything he could to prevent life loss, but the demon trampled over all the effort. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair at all. His scream went unanswered. All he could do was watch, feel as the dream continued. He saw the pig-headed boy and the boy in the green and black checkered garb combine their might to kill a headless puppet. After that, the pig-headed boy threw the boy into the air in the direction of the perpetrator. Indeed, the boy could see the white-haired demon controlling everyone with its strings like a plaything. He readied himself to use the first style. Belle cheered. But then things changed, and it amazed Belle. The demon did not resist its fate. Instead of fighting to ward off death, the demon embraced death that was coming towards it. And so, the kind-hearted demon slayer changed his stance and slashed its neck. There was no scream, for the fifth style could only be used when the opponent offered their own neck. A sword strike of kindness. The boy looked at the flying head in sympathy. There was no resentment. There was no anger. The boy only looked at the soon-to-be-dead demon with such a gentle look. And that kindness was paid back. The demon told him that there was a 12-demon moon member, 12 strongest demon outside the progenitor, as it turned to ashes. Belle was stunned. He could not tear his eyes from the beautiful scenery. A kind boy who understood and sympathized but did not forgive, and a demon who paid back kindness with kindness. This was what he was trying to achieve, and yet the emotions when the demon killed all those people still got to him. Without even realizing it, tears began to fall from his eyes. He wasn't wrong. The path he was trying to follow wasn't wrong. But there was still a long distance before Belle could proudly say he was close to the boy. Belle reached out his hand towards the figure of the boy, but he couldn't grasp the boy in the green and black checkered garb. Belle woke up. Belle, Hestia, who was, as usual, slept with him, rubbed her eyes when she felt him disturbing her sleep. What's wrong? You're crying. Indeed. The tears Belle felt falling down on his cheeks in his dream was also there when he woke up. Was it a nightmare? Don't worry, Belle. I'm here. Your beloved goddess is here. Hestia fussed over him as she wiped the tears off his face. Was it the dream you've been having? Belle nodded, taking a deep breath to calm himself. He then spoke towards his goddess. Goddess, I still have a long way to go until I can proudly stand beside him. Can you? Hestia bit her lip. Can you tell me the dream in detail? And so Belle spent the morning before his usual run telling the story of a boy in the green and black checkered garb to Hestia. He had to stop at a certain point because he wanted to go on his morning run, but he promised his goddess that he would tell all about it later. He wouldn't forget everything he saw and feel inside the dream because he could recall everything clearly. Even so, Hestia pushed him to write his dream into a sort of personal diary. Belle might do that later after he bought pens and a blank notebook. Gasping for breath, Belle sat down on the streets after an intense sparring session with Ryu as was usual. The area around them was wet from the water Belle conjured from his skill, but Belle did not care. All he cared about was returning his heartbeat back to normal to stop the gasp of breath. Congratulations, Mr. Cranel. You're improving again. Ryu spoke to him after he calmed down a little. You are a fast learner. I still cannot make you tired, though. That's simply the difference in experience between us. Ryu was her usual stoic self. However, this time Belle felt something different from the usual coming from her. He let out a smile that caught her attention. Is there something wrong, Mr. Cranel? He was glad that he was so important to her that she would put aside her feeling of sorrow and anger deep inside her to help him get stronger. So he would like to help her back by continuing their training session. Maybe, just maybe, sometimes in the future, she would let go of the sorrow and smile happily. He learned his lesson, though, so he would not mention anything about it because he was sure if he did, he would just make Ryu sadder. Nothing, Miss Lion. I'm glad I can train with you every day. There was a sound of gasping coming not from Belle. The two of them looked towards the source to see Seer closing her open mouth with her hand. Belle, to think that you're flirting with Ryu. Am I just a stepping stone? She faked being in tears, but Belle knew her enough that he wouldn't be fooled this time. Seer. This isn't what it looks like, and, of course, the straightforward serious Ryu would be fooled by Seer's act. Mr. Cranel, please convince Seer that you are not flirting with me. Belle just looked at Seer flatly. You can stop the fake tears, Seer. Ugh, Belle, you ruin my fun. Seer pouted at him. On the side, Ryu was gaping at Seer. Did she seriously think Seer was not teasing them? It's because I'm starting to understand you, Seer. Also, I feel bad for Miss Lion. Seer's face reddened in embarrassment. Oh, Belle, you charming adventurer you. Belle just scratched his cheek, laughing sheepishly. It wasn't like he was flirting with Seer either. It was just the truth. He was beginning to understand the people around him. His goddess, Hestia. His advisor, Aina. Seer. His teacher, Ryu. His supporter, Lili. The townspeople who greeted him every morning. Every person he knew, he tried to understand them all. Because of that, he knew the fact that Seer was interested in him, and he was really flattered by the interest. Sometimes, he looked at the sky and saw his grandpa grinning at him, offering his thumb up as if to say, "Go, Belle." But he already had a crush on someone else, and it wouldn't be fair to Seer if he reciprocated when his heart was not all for her. And no, whatever his grandpa was saying about harem, it was an impossibility from the start. Seer offered 2 bottles of water for him and Ryu to quench their thirst and recover their water level. Still, from his understanding, Seer liked being playful with him and everyone else. That was sort of her defense mechanism. He was sure if he rejected her, she would deflect it by being playful. And despite the fact that she liked him, she hadn't been aggressive from the start. So Belle concluded that Seer enjoyed the budding friendship they had now. And besides, as much as he ignored his grandpa's teaching, some of them were quite logical, such as this one he remembered that was related to the situation at hand. Do not reject a girl before she confessed to you. Here, Belle. Seer offered him her boxed lunch wrapped in a neat cloth. This is for today's lunch. Thanks, Seer. She then went back towards the Hostess of Fertility, leaving Ryu and him to continue the morning training. Mr. Cranel, I really appreciate you eating Seer's cooking. Ryu then narrowed her eyes towards him. You ate them, right? Did she think Belle dumped the content in the trash or something? He was not rude. Of course. I'm sorry. Despite the apology, Ryu still had her usually stoic face. But you must have known how it was from the first time she gave it to you. I simply had to make sure. I understand. I grew up on a farm, Miss Lion. I know how hard it is to raise crops until they grew into ingredients we can harvest to make food. There is no way I would waste food. That said, Seer is improving. You can't see it without tasting it. Are you sure? I'm very sure. The lunch I ate yesterday didn't stop my breath at all compared to her earlier lunch that stopped my breathing for several seconds. Ryu looked stunned at Belle's answer. Are you okay? Belle blinked in confusion. What? Please wait here. Then Ryu ran towards the Hostess of Fertility. Why did Ryu look so concerned about him? It wasn't like he was unwell. His mind connected the dots. Stupid. He abandoned Ryu's advice of waiting there and immediately ran following Ryu. Miss Lion. In the end, they cleared the misunderstandings. When Belle said the lunch stopped his breathing, he did not mean he stopped breathing. It was a confusing explanation from a tongue-tied Belle who had to clarify the meanings of his sentences. But in the end, they all got the gist of it. Belle met up with Lili before he entered the dungeon like the past 2 days. What's wrong, Master Belle? You look like you're drained. Belle just sighed, hearing Lili's question. Nothing. Explaining things without explaining anything is harder than it sounds. The truth of the matter was, Belle did not want to explain how his breathing technique works. He promised himself that he would only divulge it to fellow Familia members. Ryu and the rest of the Hostess of Fertility employees weren't. So he had to use creative liberty in explaining why the lunch stopped my breath did not mean I stopped breathing without actually explaining how he breathed. Gods, even that sounded confusing in his mind. Belle shook his head to clear his thought and walked inside the dungeon together with Lili. This was not the time for reminiscing. One should not lose concentration inside the dungeon lest the dungeon swallowed them. He started using his breath of water on the first goblin he saw. You're using your skill sooner than before, Master Belle. I want to reach the 9th floor today. At this point, 1 floor every 1 day wouldn't be strange coming from you, Master Belle. Lili deadpanned to him. As usual, Belle prayed for all monsters he killed on the way to the 9th floor. Lili quietly carved out the magic stones from the corpses Belle left behind. There was virtually no trouble from monsters or even from other familias. When they set foot on the 7th floor, though, Belle felt something. Something terrible was in the air. Did you feel that, Miss Arde? Feel what, Master Belle? So no. Now that the two were on the 7th floor, the feeling Belle had grown sharper. This was not something that he felt when he entered the 7th floor yesterday or 2 days ago. Yesterday everything was normal. But now, Belle felt dread whenever he took another step forward. Master Belle, should he go back now? The last time he felt something like this inside the dungeon was when he encountered the Minotaur on the 5th floor. Back then, he ignored the feeling, thinking that it was just his fear of the unknown. Now he knew better than to ignore it. Ryu's advice to always follow it had not proven itself wrong. Brace yourself, Miss Arde. Something is going to happen. Belle unsheathed his sword in preparation. What thing, Master Belle? I don't know. Anything bad can happen. Just prepare yourself, he replied without looking back towards his supporter. He was concentrating on pinpointing where he felt the malice coming from. A monster or several of them, Belle concluded. There was no doubt about it. No human could ever evoke such a feeling of malice inside the dungeon. The question was where. Miss Arde, Belle spoke when he felt a burst of dread coming towards them. Follow me. Still using his breathing technique, Belle sprinted towards a specific direction where the malice and dread coming. Malice from the monsters. Dread from cornered adventurers. There was no mistaking it. And Master Belle, wait for Lili. Some adventurers were about to die. The both of them heard a painful wail coming from the direction Belle was heading to. All inside Belle's mind were prayers. But this time, it was not for the monsters to have peace of mind. This time, it was prayers to his goddess. To other famous gods and goddess name that he knew. He prayed that he would not be too late. When they arrived, it was to see a lone adventurer's limp body on the ground. Blood was everywhere around the body. However, it was not the most attention-cathing thing they saw. The thing that caught their attention the most were 5 bloody killer ants hanging around the dead body. He heard Lili gasped behind him, but he paid it no mind. His prayers went unanswered, but he paid it no mind. His mind was recalling the dream he had last night up to every detail. He couldn't help but see the dead adventurer's body superimposed with the dead demon slayers in his dream. And so everything fell into place. There were two paths that Bell could take. He could lose himself in rage and furiously kill all the monsters in the name of revenge for the dead adventurer. However, he wouldn't know what await him at the end of that path. The other path, the one path that he no doubted would take, was mercy and sympathy, but not above duty. He would not lie and say that he understood why the monsters killed the adventurer. Still, he would not torture them over killing a fellow adventurer, nor would he stop praying for their peace of mind upon killing them. But he understood that it was a natural order of things. Monsters killed adventurers. Adventurers killed monsters. This time, this one adventurer went unlucky and had to die. In return, Bell would kill the monsters who killed him. Letting out his breath, Bell prepared himself for a stance. Breath of water, third style. Dance of the swift current. He danced around the killer ants, decapitating 2 in the process. They realized another threat was coming and began to call for reinforcement. But Bell put their effort for naught. With a swing of his sword, he slashed 2 more, killing them instantly. The last one realized that calling for help would waste too much time and ran. But Bell would never let it go away. Breath of water, second style. Water wheel. A wheel of water struck the last killer ants, stopping its run. Bell took no time to close the gap and slashed its neck, killing it. Sheathing his sword back to his waist, Bell looked around, trying to gauge if more of their kind would appear from the distress call. When after 10 seconds nothing came out, Bell spoke to Lili. "Miss Arde, take out the magic stones and put it on a different sack," Bell requested to his supporter. "All right." And then Bell prayed for the 5 killer ants he just killed. He heard Lili gasped again behind him. "Are you serious, Master Bell? Those killer ants had just killed a fellow adventurers. And you still pray for them?" Bell, who had just finished the prayers, looked towards the fuming Lili and smiled. As he was about to open his mouth, however, Lili cut him off. "Don't give Lili the crap about born that way or something. They are just mindless monsters. Mindless monsters who had just killed someone in front of your eyes. Do you place monsters above your own kinds?" Lili looked at him in the eyes, glaring at his slight. Hearing this, Bell could only laugh. "I like this fiery Miss Arde more than the usual submissive Miss Arde." That put a shocked Lili into embarrassment. "Tach, that's not the problem here. As for your question, I hope you don't mind ending our excursion for today." "Ha!" Bell then moved towards the dead adventurer's lifeless body. He was still young. Older than him, for sure, if the slight stubble of beard on his chin didn't spell it, but compared to other senior adventurers around Orario, he was still young. Probably just about to enter the 20s. Now he wouldn't even feel the joy of coming back home. Nor could he enjoy the food and drinks he had on the tavern. No families would embrace him and give him thanks for being with them. Nor would a lovely woman be his partner for life. He also wouldn't have a child that he could teach swordsmanship. This was the end for this stranger that Bell hadn't had the chance to know yet. "Master Bell, are you looting the corpse?" Lili asked him as she probably saw him trying to scan for his belongings. He indeed scanned his belongings, but not for the purpose of looting them. He was trying to find an identifier, a memento from the dead adventurer. He found it, a small emblem containing a single Far Eastern character. Bell never had any education on Far Eastern's culture, but he could the character for some reason. Ben. It could mean anything from petals to distinguish. He pocketed it before he took the body and piggybacked it. "I'm ending our delve for the day, Miss Arde. You can take all the stones we've gathered for today, except those from the 5 killer ants. You put it on another sack, right?" Lili did, Master Bell. "Are you?" Her unasked question was obvious. Lili is sorry for saying those things. He just smiled. "It's fine. Understandable, considering I did pray for the monsters first. But I simply don't want to pray for him before giving him a proper burial above. Let's go." "Why, yes." The walk back was silent and peaceful. No monsters were attacking them. "This is strange," Lili said, breaking the silence. "What is?" Bell prompted. Their footsteps echoed in the silence. "This," Lili pointed out heatedly. "Why are there no monsters coming for us? Shouldn't you be grateful instead of complaining?" Ugh. Lili hates that Master Bell is exactly right. In the end, they really had not met any resistance inside the dungeon, to Lili's amazement. When they arrived near the entrance, the people there helpfully pointed out to him what to do when you brought a dead body from the dungeon. He gave them his thanks and continued towards the guild. On the way there, Bell was asked questions from his acquaintances around the city, like where he found the dead body or did he see him dying or not. He patiently answered each of them because he did not want to be rude, but Lili looked at him with a sharp glare for wasting their time chatting instead of going to the Pantheon. So, with a sheepish laugh, he excused himself and continued their way. Inside the Pantheon, Bell and Lili parted ways for the day. As he promised, Lili got everything they gathered today but the small sack containing the magic stones from the 5 killer ants. After she made her way towards the exchange counter, Bell approached a random staff and informed her about a newly deceased adventurer. Their responses were quick, just as the helpful adventurers said to him at the dungeon entrance. Bell got the information of the dead adventurer's name and his familia's name, Cedric Mello, from Benzaiten Familia, small familia which was founded several years ago. Bell asked the guild staff whether he could be the one delivering the news instead of a representation from the guild, to which the staff agreed. Bell suspected she just did not want to send her coworker to deliver the bad news. After getting their address, Bell bid goodbye to the staff and made his way towards the Familia house. It was around the northeast of Orario. On the way there, Bell was thinking about how to deliver the bad news to Benzaiten Familia. He had no prior experience in delivering bad news. However, he knew the feeling of loss. His grandfather left him one day, and the next thing was his neighbor telling him that his beloved grandpa was dead, attacked by goblins. He arrived at the address and knocked on the door, tensing slightly when the door was opened. The one who opened the door for him was a beautiful figure wearing Far East's kimono. Yes? To whom do I owe the pleasure? There was no mistaking it. This was the goddess Benzaiten. Bell opened his mouth but found himself losing his words. Gods. She was smiling. How could he deliver such bad news to her? No doubt it would ruin her day. Bell gulped. Yes. He couldn't do it. He couldn't say it. The grief he envisioned she would have when she heard the news was too much for him. But he knew that he had to do it. I'm sorry. In the end, this was the best he could offer. He took out the emblem containing the Far East character and offered it to the goddess in front of him. Bell heard a gasp of shock. My beloved said. My beloved said. She reached the emblem and held it on her chest, embracing it tightly, crying for the child she lost. His body is still with the guild as per the procedure, Bell continued. I'm sorry. No, thank you for doing this. She wiped some tears off her face. Despite her tears, it did not mar her beauty at all. Let me get everyone and we'll go to the guild. Thank you. May I know the name of the kind soul who found his body? I assume you found his body, yes? She grieved, but it was not as bad as Bell thought. Was this perhaps not her first parting with a Familia member? If so, he underestimated the strength of her heart. Benzaiten was indeed someone worthy of being called a goddess. Yes. My name is Bell. Bell Cranel. We are indebted with you, Bell Cranel. Not many would bring up a stranger's dead body above. The usual procedure is usually by fellow Familia members. Other people would just loot the bodies. I thank you with the bottom of my heart. She bowed towards him. A goddess was bowing. She shouldn't have done that, Bell thought to himself. Before you go inside. Bell took the sack containing magic stones from the killer ants and offered it to the goddess. This is the magic stones from the monsters killing Mr. Mello. Amidst her tears, she smiled. A kind soul indeed. Tech then, I'm off. Mr. Cranel, she called out to him when he was already half a step away. If you don't mind, would you attend the funeral? Can I? Honestly, this was why he wanted to be the one delivering the news. He wanted to attend the funeral, but coming uninvited was just rude, so he stealthily tried to appeal towards the deceased's familia. We'd be glad for you to be there. Thank you so much. Bell bowed towards the goddess. The funeral procession was somber. Only some guild staff, Bell himself, and the rest of Benzaiten Familia, 5 people, Bell noted inside his mind, attended the funeral from start to finish. He didn't speak with the other Benzaiten Familia members, preferring to keep his thought inside, but all of them looked like they were decent people. After everything was finished, everyone went back except Bell, who requested Benzaiten to pray for the dead longer. She accepted with a smile despite her grief, and so Bell was left alone inside the adventurer's graveyard, praying in front of the newly buried Cedric Mello's tombstone. He prayed that Cedric's soul would reach the above safely. He also prayed that Cedric would get a chance to do anything he missed in his next life. He also prayed that Cedric wouldn't hold a grudge against the 5 killer ants he killed. He knew it was a long shot. Not everyone was trying to not hate monsters as he was, But he had to pray. Maybe. Just maybe. His prayer was heard by the soul and he would take it to his next life. Finishing his prayer, Bell scanned his surroundings. This was his first time going to the adventurer's graveyard. He imagined everyone losing their loved ones and couldn't help but feel mournful. This place was the only place they could reach out to those who had left the world. Walking along the path, Bell saw 3 unmarked and unkempt graves placed far away from the other tombstones. He wondered whose graves were those as he approached it. Weeds were growing around them, and the unmarked tombstones were full of wild moss. Frowning, Bell came to the graves and began rooting out all the weeds. While he didn't know whose grave these were, it did not sit right with him that such a sacred place was left unkempt. So it was a surprise for him when somebody greeted him as he was scrapping all the moss on the tombstones. I didn't expect to see anyone tending those graves. Bell looked towards the direction of the voice and saw a blonde-haired man wearing a hat with a single feather tucked on top, 3 bouquets of flowers in his hands. The divine presence around him obviously telling everyone that he was a god. But this was the first time Bell saw him. "Good afternoon, Lord God," Bell greeted him back. "No need for formality. Just call me Hermes." He waved his hand, gesturing for Bell to stop paying so much respect to him. "I can't do that, Lord Hermes. You are still a god, after all," Bell replied. "Oh, my name is Bell Cranel." He then continued scrapping the moss. If he paid more attention to the figure, he would undoubtedly see the god widening his eyes and smiling in excitement. "I have to ask, Bell. May I call you that? As I said, I'm not big on formalities. I have to ask, do you know whose graves are these?" Bell shook his head. "No, but it's just seeing these unattended graves. Doesn't it fill you with sadness? These were somebody's resting place, and nobody cared enough to clean them regularly." "Intriguing. What do you gain from cleaning them?" Hermes leaned forward. "My peace of mind." Bell then continued a few seconds later. "And there's 2, I guess." "Heh. Quite intriguing indeed." Hermes then placed each bouquet of flowers on each tombstone. "Do you know them, perhaps, Lord Hermes?" "What if I tell you they were notorious villains who terrorized the city, killing countless people?" Bell frowned. "It's hypothetical, am I correct? There's no way a god like you would pay your respect if they are notorious villains." "If you'd like." Hermes hid his eyes behind the hat. "Then it changes nothing. But I guess I want to understand why they did those deeds if it was true." "Why do you want to know?" "Why? To understand them, of course." Bell looked towards the unmarked tombstone. If it were true, Bell wanted to ask for the reason why they did those terrible deeds. Not because he had the delusion that they could achieve peace if they talked, but because he wanted to understand them. He would never agree with them. But a notorious villain avenging their fallen comrades by killing the perpetrators, not caring about the collateral damage, and a joker who killed for fun were 2 different people. They were still criminals. But Bell would be happier fighting the former than the latter. "Heh, you're really interesting, Bell Cranel. What if I tell you that they were some of the greatest heroes of all time?" Bell blinked. Now it was on the opposite end? "This is also hypothetical, right?" At Hermes' nod, Bell continued. "Then I'd have to wonder if they were the sort of people who hate noisy crowds." "Are really?" Bell chuckled. "That's just a random thought. I mean, to have requested a god of all people to place their graves separated from others. And those are nameless graves too. I thought it signified them being people who don't like their name to be known to the mass, the heroes who had never been immortalized in heroic tales." Hermes fell silent after Bell answered, paying all of his attention towards the graves. "Bell, would you like to offer your prayer to them? Is it fine? I don't even know them." "You might not know them, but if they're still around, I'm sure they heard your thought about them and appreciate it." "Then, here I go." Bell put his hand together and began to pray for the 3 nameless deceased. He did not know anything about them, but he prayed that they would have peace of mind upon death. Were they remorseless killers, he prayed that they would feel remorse. Were they great heroes, he prayed that they would receive the best treatment after death above. Were they just normal adventurers who died on the line of duty, he prayed that they would not have any regrets. "I'm done." To his side, Bell saw Hermes still paying his respect for them. Now he really wondered who they were, to have gained respect from a god. "Thank you, Bell, for indulging me like this," Hermes said after he finished praying for them. No, it's my pleasure." "What level are you, Bell? I'm curious." "Not many would start gaining respect for the dead early. At least, not until they have a brush with death." Hermes asked him with a little more curiosity than he should have for a no-name adventurer like him. But Bell did not feel any malice coming from him, so he answered the question with a smile. I started 3 weeks ago. Truly. There was a surprise on his face. But you look strong already, Bell. Say, would you be interested in joining my familia? Hermes' familia is quite famous around Ororio. You know? No way, no way. I still have a long way to go until somebody can call me strong. Although I'm sorry, Lord Hermes. I promise I would never leave my goddess Hestia. Aha, I see. You're Hestia's kid. Huh? Take good care of her, okay, Bell. She's my friend, and I want to see her succeed. Definitely, Lord Hermes. Incidentally, Bell, you said you only started 3 weeks ago, right? What are you doing here before you stumbled upon these graves? I hope nothing bad happened. You look like a good kid. Bell just laughed sheepishly, being called a good kid. I found an adventurer's dead body in the dungeon. So I brought his body up and helped the funeral procession. My condolence. Is it someone you know? No, he answered honestly. But I got the information about him from the guild, and later I was told of his accomplishment by his goddess. So I feel like I know him already. Bell smiled. Then his expression turned somber. I couldn't leave him be. So I took responsibility, brought his body back up, delivered the bad news, and helped in the funeral procession. I see. Would you do this again if you see another dead body? I'm honestly curious, Bell. Not many would do what you did, and I am happy that Ororio still has someone like you. Of course, Bell smiled towards Hermes. To me, kindness begets kindness. That was just me giving kindness to Benzaiten Familia. I'm not hoping for something from them, but I'm sure in the future, someone else will help me if I have a hard time. Hermes frowned. That's quite naive of you, Bell. I hope Orario's dark side wouldn't touch you. You'd be swallowed. Bell shook his head. It's not naivete. I know when to hold myself back. His mind wandered back to Lili. He knew she was bad news, but he still tried to help her anyway. Okay, I might not know when to hold myself, but that's why I have my goddess. Family protects each other. Interesting answer, Bell. Thank you for the chat. I figure you have something else to do, so I won't waste your time anymore. No, you're not wasting my time at all, Lord Hermes. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I must be wasting your precious time telling you all these. Bell looked apologetically towards the hatted man. Well then, thank you for your time, Lord Hermes. See you soon. Bell bid Hermes goodbye and left the adventurer's graveyard. Hermes looked at the retreating back of Bell Cranel. Zeus' last legacy. He wondered what would Althea think of her nephew. That one guess from Bell really surprised him if he were to be honest. Bell would never realize how close he was to the truth, Hermes laughed internally. So far, he liked what he saw. He wondered how long would it be until all of Ororio would sing his name praises. He inwardly smiled. Why would he wait when he could do something about it? Bell wandered around. He was in no mood to go back to the dungeon after the funeral, but just going back home would only make him stew on the thought of Benzaiten Familia. Because he was acquainted with so many people, Bell found himself greeting almost everyone he met on his wandering. However, most of them could tell that his smile didn't reach his face, and they began to ask him if he was okay. He didn't want to worry everyone, so he just answered with a nod. The truth of the matter was that Bell's mind was gripped because people did die in the dungeon. Before, he just knew that people died. Now, he realized what it meant. Dying in the dungeon was not simple. It meant that you left your familia members. Suddenly, the realization that it could be him next scared him. He wasn't scared of dying itself, but he was afraid that Hestia would be left alone. Benzaiten at least had her other familia members. But Hestia? She had no one else. Now he understood why Hestia was always worried for him. She did not want him to leave her all alone. He needed to get stronger. Not just to follow and stand beside the boy in the dream's path, but also to make his familia happy. Without realizing it, his steps had taken him to the Hostess of Fertility. Maybe it was the familiarity of the place, having trained around there every day for the past few days. He entered the establishment and waved towards Seer, taking a seat at the bar counter. It's rare seeing you visit this place at this time. Seer sat behind the counter. Luckily, it's not evening yet, so I'm not busy. Indeed, while it was late afternoon, the place was not as busy as Bell had visited before. This was probably not the peak hour of this place, as most adventurers were still gathering magic stones inside the dungeon. Bell just nodded and stared at the counter. His mind was still occupied by the thought from before. Bell? Sorry. There's a lot in my mind. Seer just smiled at him. It's okay, Mr. Serious Adventurer. But what are your orders? Also, how was today's boxed lunch? Bell widened his eyes. I'm sorry, Seer, something happened in the dungeon, and I couldn't eat your lunch today. I'm sorry. Bell took out the still pristine boxed lunch from his small bag and put it on the counter. Do you mind if I eat that here? It wouldn't sit well with me seeing the lunch you made uneaten. Chloe, Lunwar, and even Ryu looked at him. Somebody gasped, but Bell didn't see who it was. His conversation partner's face reddened in embarrassment. Well, if you'd like to, Bell. And so Bell opened the boxed lunch and started eating the food inside. He still didn't understand why Chloe, Lunwar, and Ryu looked at him the entire time he ate, though. Kinda made him nervous. The food itself was nothing special, but it was definitely an improvement from yesterday. He finished it without much fanfare. Seer was also looking at him now. How was it? She asked with bated breath. And now, the waitresses also held their breath in anticipation. Was Seer's food that special to warrant their attention? You improved again. Next time, please make sure that the amount of salt is proportional to the meat. Yesterday was too much, but today was too little. I couldn't get the salty taste at all. Bell gave his honest opinion. That black thing contains meat? Bell heard something along the lines coming from the waitresses. Thank you. Tomorrow will be even better. I promise. Seer took the empty box and went back to the kitchen. Bell looked around, trying to find a certain someone. Miss Lion. He called when he saw she was free from any customer. Is there something that I can help with, Mr. Cranel? She said after she approached him, holding the empty tray around her stomach. I'm sorry if this brings up bad memories, but you're a former adventurer, right? Ryu's stoic expression changed a little. Indeed. What of it? Can we talk? He asked nervously, understanding her sudden cold demeanor. Aye. Bell sighed anxiously. Something happened, and I need someone to talk to. Why not Seer? I think this is a problem that civilians won't understand, and I'm reluctant to ask for advice from the others, mostly because I don't trust them. Bell admitted with an apologetic expression. Very well. Do we need privacy? Or is this place fine? Here's fine. Bell leaned on the counter when he saw Ryu nodded and went behind the counter. Miss Lion, does this have something to do with you finding a dead body? Ryu suddenly cut him, who was still trying to find his words. The news has traveled fast, I see. Bell scratched the back of his head. It's related, but not directly. After letting out a breath, Bell continued. You see, before today, I never thought about my own mortality. It doesn't mean I don't fear death, but it just never occurred to me that I could end up like that one day. Now I realize my own mortality, and I am beginning to understand why my goddess is so protective of me. She doesn't want me to end up like that. It's also why Miss Ina, my advisor from the guild, always doing her best to help me coming back safely. Bell looked towards Ryu's face, who still did not show any emotion other than the stoic coldness. Now, after I'm beginning to understand that, suddenly I feel scared of dying. To be precise, I'm not afraid of the pain or anything like that. I'm afraid of leaving all the people that care for me alone. Bell heard a small gasp coming from the former adventurer who was listening to his rant. How do you overcome that fear, Miss Lion? Ryu looked at the younger adventurer in front of her. He was definitely younger than her. And yet, he already had the maturity to question such a thing. Something that she had never considered until it happened and tore her world apart. That's a hard question to answer, Mr. Cranel. Ryu looked down, avoiding his gaze. I have been on both ends. I couldn't possibly burden you with my story, but I have been on both ends. Even so, I still don't have the answer to your question. She had suffered a broken heart after being left alone by all of her familia members. To this day, she still didn't understand why Elise and the others saved her and her alone. So she definitely had been on the side of the one being left alone. It was painful, really painful. It was not a mistake to say that she fell into despair following that tragedy. So she couldn't possibly know the answer to Bell's question because she was on the other side. She had also broken her goddess heart after leaving her alone to avenge her fallen familia members by erasing Evelys out of existence. In her immaturity and rage at the injustice of it all, she abandoned the one who cared for her the most. So she couldn't possibly know the answer to Bell's question because, by the time she had thought of it, it was too late. Nobody had cared for her anymore. Seer and Mamma Mia possibly cared for her now. But it was a different type of care from the one her familia had. A familia, after all, was family. She had no family left after Estria Familia was gone. The Hostess of Fertility employees was close to each other. There was also the feeling of being cared for by everyone, but it was not quite like family. So, she couldn't answer, as she could never position herself in Bel's place. Being cared for by his goddess, his advisor, seer, and even the people of Orario. She had only known about this today when she overheard some civilians talking about Bel familiarly, and she was quite surprised by the number of people who knew Bel. She couldn't answer because she had no right to answer the question, abandoning her goddess like that. She felt disappointed at herself that she could not repay the trust he had in her. Miss Lion. Bel called for her. I'm sorry. It must be really painful. Huh? Your heart. I feel that your heart exudes pain. It's fine. You don't need to answer. This boy. How could he possibly know? She kept tight control of her expression. This was not the first time he did it. There was also the time when he blurted out his question before the monsterphilia. He said it was his feeling. Was his feeling that sharp to be able to read her emotion correctly twice? Ryu found herself looking at the pair of mesmerizing red eyes radiating warmth. His smiling visage suddenly overlapped with someone else. Someone familiar to her. Goddess. I'll keep looking for the answer. When I found it, I'll share it with you. Bel Cranel. Unbelievable. Truly unbelievable that someone like him was in Orario. That way, maybe it can help you alleviate your pain somehow. It did not sit right with her to just accept the compromise offered by him. Despite having thrown away all her pride for the sake of revenge, she still knew that conceding to him now would mean she was the lowest of the lowest. She wouldn't call herself kind, for she had killed. She wouldn't call herself good, for she had done bad. She wouldn't call herself prideful, for she had thrown it all away. But she was a woman who knew that all debts must be paid, and conceding this to Bel meant that she put herself in his debt. I'll look for it on my own way, Mr. Cranel, but I appreciate your offer. Bel smiled. Then let's look for it together. I'm sure it will be faster that way. She'd been had. Bel offered to help, but she rebuked it politely because she did not want to put herself indebted to him. However, it was actually his aim all along because now he asked her to do it together. Well played, Mr. Cranel. She let slip a smile onto her face. Ah, curses. She immediately put her controlled expression back. Seer came back from the kitchen and sat beside her. What are you guys talking about? Ah, Seer. You looked brighter than before, Bel. Did Ryu help you with something? Yeah, dash. We helped each other. She cut him off. To be honest, she had always buried all her feelings inside and ignored them, but now that Bel dug it up and forced her to think about it without any malice, she felt lighter than before. The weight of her sins was still there. She could feel it. But Bel had inadvertently lifted the burden without him realizing what he was doing. Anyway, was my mood really that visible? Bel asked Seer, who was just grinning like a fox towards him. Yes, I'm glad that two of my favorite people can help each other. After that, Bel and Seer fell into small talks that she had no right to intrude, so she excused herself. Huh? Was that decoration always there? Oh, that book? Some customers dropped it here yesterday. We put it there to make sure they see it when they come back. How would you know he was really the owner? What would you do if someone claimed it was theirs? She didn't find out how that particular conversation ended up because Chloe was asking for her. Coming, she answered Chloe and went to an occupied table. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for coming here. What will you be having? Later, she saw Bel taking the book with him. She wanted to question Seer but decided against it. It wasn't her problem, nor would she like to involve herself there. Bel came back to the abandoned church with a book in his hand. Honestly, he didn't understand how his questions led to Seer asking him to keep the book until the owner came back. She said since he was the one who realized that anybody could lay claim to it with no proof, he should be the one keeping it until the owner came to the Hostess of Fertility. But well, Seer was asking for help, so he accepted it. So he came back, taking the book with him. When dinner time arrived, Hestia saw something placed around the corner of the basement where they lived and asked Bel about it. Oh, that book? Apparently, someone dropped it at the Hostess of Fertility, and I was asked to house the book until the owner comes back. Bel gave his explanation. What kind of book was it anyway? I don't know. I haven't looked at the content. Bel shrugged and continued eating. Ia, you agreed without knowing what it is. Hestia looked surprised at his decision. What? It's just a book, right? And besides, taking a look inside, even just a small peek, without the owner's permission is rude. Bel pointed out to his goddess like he was lecturing a child. Feeling chastised, Hestia just pouted and continued eating, the book never coming up their conversation again. When they finished dinner, Hestia bit her lip in hesitation. She had just gotten the answer about Bel's dream from her fellow deities. What Bel experienced might be some glitch in the reincarnation process. Typically, someone could never recall something from their former life, but Bel somehow did. She wanted to give the answer to Bel, but she was afraid. If Bel realized the truth, if he realized what his dream meant, he might not be Bel anymore. Bel dreamed of the boy in the green and black checkered garb. This time, the boy saw a demon cutting its ally's face using some kind of strings. When the boy questioned its act, it replied, saying that the two were not allies but family. Bel couldn't accept it. A family would never hurt each other. Therefore to Bel, the demon's claim was fake. The two demons were not family. Angrily, the boy corrected it. Family and allies were tied by strong bonds. There was nothing shallow about not being tied by blood. Bel wholeheartedly agreed. He and his goddess were not tied by blood. Well, technically, her granting him Falna used a little bit of blood, but other than that, the family he had now was not his blood-related family at all. The boy then denounced the relationship between the two demons. Bel shouted in agreement, fully agreeing with the boy's assessment. Then a random demon slayer appeared, only to be killed instantly by the younger demon. It shook the boy a little, but he stood his ground. The relationship between the two demons was fake, and everybody knew it. The boy started his attack, intending to use the first style, but in an instant, the sword he used was broken by the demon. Even after that, the boy never backed down, and he continued to probe his way around the strings. But it was futile, for the strings formed a dome around him before it contracted and struck at him. It should have sliced him. However, the boy's demonized sister came out of the box at the last second and took his place. Bel was genuinely touched by the bond shared between the siblings. And it seemed like the one touched was not only Bel but also the demon. Suddenly, the younger demon lashed in anger towards the older one and sliced her head off. The demon then made a ridiculous proposal towards the boy. It wanted to take the boy's sister and made her its sister. Bel cried in outrage. Families could never be built that way. The demon was deluding its mind with its own fake family. The boy also felt the same as Bel, as he stood protectively with his sister in his arms, declaring that his sister was not an object that can be traded away. A confrontation was unavoidable. The boy in the green and black checkered garb stood, facing the spider-like demon with his broken sword. It was then that the demon revealed itself to be part of the 12 demon moons. No wonder it was really strong. It was part of the 12 strongest demons under the progenitor. With a single stroke of its strings, it took the boy's sister away from him. Now the situation was reversed. Bel gritted his teeth. The boy had to take her sister back using only a broken sword and nothing else. The boy moved, trying to close the distance, but the demon manipulated its strings so fluently the boy could not do anything to get closer. Every time the boy thought he was getting closer, he had to dodge the threads, which, as had been shown, could cut someone's head off the body. The boy's sister didn't do nothing. She kept struggling under the captive, so much that the demon decided to bound her above them using some of the strings. Bel was happy to see that. It meant that the sister also treasured the bond the two siblings had. The boy took a deep breath, and using the broken sword he struck. The 10th style. A style that Bel had only seen when the boy was training. He was not confident with the movement just from those training sessions, so he waited until the boy showed more of it, especially in a real battle. And now was the time. With the utmost concentration, Bel looked at the boy in the green and black checkered garb running towards the demon, twisting his body to create a rotational force. With force from the rotation of the body, the boy could cut the demon's strings. It was now time to counterattack. However, it was for naught. The spider-like demon reinforced the strings and formed a prison-like dome around the boy. This was the end. The world froze as the boy saw his entire life flashed before his eyes, and Bel was brought along with him. They relived a memory of when the boy was still a child, of when the boy's entire family was still around. The boy and his sister were still but toddlers. They danced happily, being watched by their father. Breathe, control your breath, and you would be the god of fire. The word triggered another memory of the boy. It was a snowy winter night. In New Year's Eve, the boy's family always offered dance for the god of fire to ward off injuries and disasters. Bell saw the boy looked mesmerized as his father danced without stopping. Later, the boy asked his father how he could withstand dancing in the cold, snowy winter night with his frail body. The answer was actually breathing. There was a particular way of breathing that would never make you exhausted, no matter how much you moved. The boy snapped back to reality and fluidly changed his stance. From the breath of water that he spent blood and sweat training to improve himself to the dance of fire god that he knew all his life. The strings that formed the prison-like dome were cut, and the boy never once stopped on his way to kill the demon. On the last rope, the demon struck, but the boy had resolved himself to continue even if it meant getting sliced by the strings. At the last second, the strings burned off. Now the boy had free access to the demon's neck. With all his might, the boy swung the broken sword. The blood on the sword ignited and accelerated it, cutting the demon's neck smoothly. The boy shouted with all his heart, declaring that nobody could ever sever the bond between the two siblings. And Bell woke up. The next morning, as usual, Bell found himself around the Hostess of Fertility for the spar with Ryu. For some reason, Seer was there looking at them. Maybe she had a break from preparing the restaurant? Bell didn't know. "Miss Lion, can I try something new? Please don't be alarmed." Not that Bell had the delusion of overcoming his weaknesses with the new thing anyway. Ryu would probably mop the floor with him again. Bell looked at the katana on his waist. He just wanted to see if his dream was still as clear as before. Ryu looked at him with focus. "You can." Bell breathed. "Dance of the fire god. Waltz." He twisted his body and swung the sword. This time, unlike the water that accompanied his breath of water, a stream of fire came out of the sword, forming a trail as it slashed the air. He stopped his breathing, only to see the wide eye of surprise from Ryu and a starry-eyed Seer clapping her hands. "Amazing, Bell! Fire magic!" Bell scratched the back of his head in embarrassment at the praise. Not really. I mean, it's the same skill that manifests water before." "Huh." Seer looked confused. "More importantly, Seer, I forgot to ask, has the owner of the book come?" Bell asked her. "Not yet, Bell. I'll inform you when they come." Seer regained her composure and answered. "Thanks, Seer." Bell turned his attention back towards Ryu. "Shall we continue? I know this is a private matter, but I have to ask, what kind of skill do you possess?" "No need to answer. I just had to air my thought on the matter." Ryu shook her head and went on a stance. Bell just laughed sheepishly. His skill was elemental respiration. Just from the name, Bell could deduce that it would manifest the breathing style he used. Before this, he used breath of water, and the skill manifested the waters. Now, he used dance of the fire god, and it manifested the fire. Nothing was surprising about the fire for Bell. The thing that surprised him the most was that he knew dance of the fire god's stance. Just like how his body knew how to use the breath of water, it also knew how to use dance of the fire god. However, he couldn't recall anything about it before he had his dream last night. Yesterday morning, he didn't even know any stance other than the breath of water. But now he knew the entire 12 sequences of the dance of fire god. It was as if his body remembered it again for the second time. As he thought, his dream was not just a dream. There was something more to it. He hoped Hestia had gotten the answer. "Mr. Cranel?" Ryu called him, shaking him out of his thought. "Right." Bell focused on the present. Time for thinking about it was not now. Now was the time to improve himself. However, before their blades clashed, somebody interrupted them. "Oh ho! I couldn't believe it myself, but I finally found you, Bell." It was a voice that Bell had only heard yesterday. "Lord Hermes." "Good morning, Bell." Behind him, a beautiful woman accompanied him. Her stern look kind of intimidated Bell, coupled with the fact that she wore glasses, it only made her gaze felt sharper. This was not someone he would like to mess up with. "I couldn't believe it. I was just randomly thinking where I could find you out loud, and suddenly, someone pointed this place to me. Didn't know you're quite the talk of the town, Bell." Hermes went near the Hostess of Fertility. Seer looked like she forgot something because she hurriedly went inside. Not really. I just know most of them." "From whom did you get my location, Lord Hermes?" "I don't exactly know his name, but I believe he opened a flower shop around the north." "Flower shop? Mrs. Estelle's husband. How is he?" "Last I heard, he had a cold. If he's wandering outside, then he's healthy. That man should have rested his body more considering his age. But he would always deny it and try to appear tough." Hermes looked at him as if he was strange, but then he shook his head and smiled. "Yeah, Moving on, Belle. Are you training here? Can I watch? Sure. But why? I'm interested in you. I'm sorry, Lord Hermes, but I'm not interested in you in that way. Belle took a step backward, distancing himself from the god. Wait, no, I didn't mean it that way. Belle ignored him to see the stern woman talking with Ryu. Lion. Andromeda. It looked like they knew each other. I'm sorry about my god. Ryu looked towards him. It's fine. It looks like he's also fine with it. You're training the boy? Ryu nodded. To my own surprise. Miss Lion, I'm ready. Belle interrupted their conversation. Right? Prepare yourself, Mr. Cranel. They clashed blades until Ryu was called by Mamma Mia. As usual, Belle never won, but Ryu's remark about his new stance being harder to counter than before made him happy. He bid goodbye to Ryu, Hermes, and the woman accompanying him. When Belle was out of their sight, Asphai immediately hounded Ryu, asking if Belle was indeed a newbie. Ryu just replied, stating that she also didn't believe it, but it was apparently the truth. Belle Cranel was an unusual adventurer, but, Ryu remarked, it did not change the fact that Belle Cranel was a good person, which was the most important thing in her book. Meanwhile, Hermes was laughing. Zeus never told him anything about training Belle in Far Eastern swordsmanship. Against all odds, Belle was not an untrained kid bumbling around trying to get stronger. Maybe he'd surprise Zeus with it, although it was for the near future. In the meantime, though, he looked towards the Hostess of Fertility. It looked like he found something interesting.